everyone. We want to welcome you to our first meeting in March of 2006. If everybody would please stand. And Vicki, if you'd lead us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us be here today. We gather today and ask that you bless these proceedings. Please give our board the wisdom to make the best decisions for the benefit of this court and our community. Today, let us pray for the Lord's abounding grace, for all that he has given, for strength for all that he wishes to give us. Amen.
Amen. Commissioner Collins, if you'd lead us in pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. This is the time of our meeting where we allow anyone in our community to come and speak to an item that is on the agenda. We actually have two public comment periods. This first public comment period regards matters that anyone wishes to speak to that's on the agenda. We also have a second public comment period at the end of our meeting where you can come and speak to anything, even if it is not on the agenda. We have no one signed up to speak, so we'll move to the first item, which is item number 1. Approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of February 15th, 2006, and minutes of the special board meeting of February 21st, 2006. I'm going to move to table this action because I believe I and Mr. Renfro and some others have some changes to make. I'd like everyone to be aware of that. If we can have a motion to table. We have a motion and a second to table. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. Item number 2, report of our port director, Mr. List.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, and our visitors, staff. We have a lot of good things to report today. A week ago, I attended a Latin American Executive Conference as a part of the AAP, American Association of Port Authorities. And many of the executives from ports throughout Latin America and the Caribbean were there. Discussions on a lot of their privatization issues, in other words, their public and private development as they grow their ports and try to be more efficient to their users, their customers. Within all of that, we certainly ran across some interesting contacts that can help us as we try to grow and become more involved in other cargoes, other areas. The port of Margarita, Venezuela wants to look at us to ship scrap this way, and what can they get from us going the other way. So we're looking at, pipe, anything they need for the oil activity that they have, oil drilling activity they have down there. So the representatives of Ecuador also have a lot of lumber, which we have been seeking to bring in this way. Mexico's consuming a lot of lumber products, so there was some good contacts there, and we're going to follow up with those and hopefully develop some new business for and not just new business, but diversified business for the Port of Brownsville. This week, I traveled with the BEDC to Dallas to visit a company called Best Trip, and they have a project ongoing that's now developing into its final stages. And to summarize it, it's basically a mini mill, and they have condensed the process to where they skip some of the steps and makes it very attractive financially, and the end product, which is the hot rolled steel, to their customers will be very attractive price-wise. So their commitment is to be able to bring that plant, once it gets beyond the pilot stage, which looks like it could happen in 6 months or even a little less, to bring it to the Port of Brownsville to start an actual steel operation here, which would benefit us from the activity. The scrap, all the scrap in it that's presently in the Port of Brownsville would not be sufficient to feed this plant. So I think it's really a good thing as far as the multiplier of jobs and opportunities it will bring for us, and the additional wharfage and dockage we would get from the ocean activity, bringing in the scrap steel to here. Another mention is we are going forth with some of our regular incentives that we have for existing users of the port. APM, which is a major account to the Port of Brownsville, has gotten incentives when they go through certain levels. We have letter that we're going to sign with them again, pretty much similar to the previous agreement, but this new agreement will allow incentives that break at $350,000, and then again at $700,000, we'll give them a wharfage discount of another 4 cents, and then at anything over 1 million tons, which is considerable, we'll give them another 4 cents per ton on that. Also, we are renewing the letter of agreement with U.S. Steel, and pretty much the conditions are the same. We are holding them responsible for all the cleaning and the activity within the warehouse itself. This week, with Commissioner De Los Santos and Chairman Zavaleta, we travel, and Donna Emard, we travel to Washington, and we had a very positive visit, I think, with many of the representatives of Congress. Chairman Young is very supportive of our activities here. There were 3 major items that we wanted to get attention to, and it's basically our dredging. We just had an emergency situation at the entrance of the channel, which is being addressed as we speak. We're about halfway through that dredging. So now we're business as usual. We can get our ships back in full load, and that, of course, provides our users with the economies of scale that they'll be able to bring in the steel ships loaded down to the max and be able to enter the channel without any issues of silting. The second item we discussed with the people we visited was the deepening and widening, because for the future, for AmFels, for larger vessels and so on, and for any future intermodal ambitions that we might have, we need to consider going deeper and going wider in our channel and in our interests as well. So those things are all on their agendas, very visible in the needs that we have down here. And finally, of course, we certainly carried the message for our need for Dock 16, which is a high priority. As we grow, we predict that our percentage increase, even for 2006, could be as high as 18% if things continue the way they are. And in order to capture future business and the growth, it's necessary for us to have another deep water facility that can handle heavy loads such as the steel slab and other cargoes that come in here. It'll also give us the opportunity to develop the container business until such time as a bigger and better intermodal facility is in place. Other than that, we have a little PowerPoint to show everybody a little bit more colorful, visible what we're talking about when we're talking about Dock 16 and Monica, you can roll that.
I'll sit right here next to you.
That's not an endangered species that I know of.
Yet. Bear with me, Mr. List. This is not my computer.
Okay. Take your time. Anyway, we have Dock 16 is proposed to be a duplicate of Dock 15 in many ways. We're looking at the funding needs of somewhere in the neighborhood of $10–11 million, and there you have it. It's our deep water position. There's 15 where the Gottwald crane is, and so if you can imagine that apron, that dock there, just repeated where the arrow is what we're looking at, and then where you can see the green area, that will be additional patio space. So all that will be filled in. And where the gap in between will probably remain as it is as a cost savings approach. Later on it can be filled in. That's being addressed as we speak. But as everybody probably knows, the rail is behind that area, so as you see there, the steel products that are on the ground, on the patio, are moved back towards the rail. BRG carries that product over into Mexico. A lot of it goes into Monterrey as the final destination. There's an overhead view of the proposed area. It makes a lot of sense. We're looking at every way to save expenses going into that by duplicating that, and any of the plans, any of the expertise that was given for the first dock, which was Dock 15, will now be applied to Dock 16, and that is our deepest area. Once the vessels have discharged their cargo there, then they go on into the turning basin, but they're lighter, so they don't have an issue with the depth. And that's some of the things that I expressed, that we see as savings, and we can duplicate our dock area for the deep water requirements. Ships coming in at 50,000 tons, 60,000 tons, sometimes come in two at a time, and if there's a conflict, they get hit with demurrage. It could be $40,000, $50,000 each time, and that would probably make them want to go to another port for a future visit, because we don't have the infrastructure facilities to take two large vessels simultaneously. So it's really important. It's really way up on our priority list. Okay. And there's the proposed new dock and how the configuration of the vessels would line up. So you could get easily two 750 feet vessels there simultaneously, and be able to operate them. Of course, that leads us to start looking at the possibility of a second crane. So each dock could have its own crane to assist the vessels that don't have cranes of their own. The red part there is the future warehouse. If that becomes a need, that actually is a part of phase 2, which would be additional funding. Some creative design work there to turn it in a different direction because of the rail access there. But again, it would take away less of our water front area by turning it in that direction. So it looks like that's going to be a good proposal for that. And that's the overview of it. Mini yard, administration office, and restrooms on that side, because it becomes physically distant from Dock 16 and all the facilities over there for the people that are working the vessel to have access down there. So we feel that we can increase our tonnage with this facility by over $1 million in revenue, and vessel traffic by getting new commodities as well as the existing commodities. We had one good experience towards the end of last year with coal, and we're talking to in our visits with companies like TECO, which is Tampa Electric Company, and they have large barges that pick up coal out of the Mississippi River, and and other sources that could bring coal into here that's used in the furnaces of the steel processors down in the steel mills down in Monterey and those areas for all the work they do with the steel product down there. So we want to take advantage of the coal coming out of Columbia and some other areas, and that's a part of this new dock. Nina, would you like to address some of the permit application?
Well, basically, we would have Actor to accelerate this thing. Actor has started working on the permit application instead of waiting until we have a consultant on board to develop this. This will take some time, so we want to get that out of the way. Of course, the next step would be, I'm sure it'll come up today, determination of the funding, how we're going to pay for this thing. And then the contract with the engineering firm would be for surveys, geotech studies, design, construction management. But basically, this is, in a nutshell, the action plan. Further down, you will see another slide which will show some graph on milestones. might add here what we've done in here, and we're in the dark how much this thing is going to cost. We've talked to the engineer with China mostly that decided 15, and he's thinking more like 12 million. I'm saying 11, but we don't know. The price of steel is just about tripled. Concrete is 2.5 times what it was at that time. But we're hopeful that we can work, with the 11 million. But wanted everybody to understand that normally, if you'll see up there on the third line, contingency, normally engineers like to put 15% in there. Since we have already taken all the bucks out, supposedly, of any things that we don't see in Doc 15, I scale it down to 5%. We're trying to be realistic, but at the same time, I don't want to fund ourselves out of this thing, but at the same time, we need to understand that it could be maybe $12 million.
And that's the flip side of it. The more we wait for this, the more these construction materials are going to go up.
Exactly. Mr. List explained to you the construction sequence under phase 1. Of course, we would build a dock with a 62-foot dock, 715, 83-foot concrete pavement, and then the adjacent roadway adjacent to the proposed apron. The one that's there right now for 15 is made out of flexible base and asphalt. If we have the money, I think I would strongly recommend that we go concrete with that road. I see already, even though the sign on the existing one is taking a pounding, a terrible pounding, but it's well designed. One of the days when we put an overlay, when I say overlay, put some asphalt and concrete over it, we're going to have a little bump in there, and there could be some problem with the drainage. So I'd like to slope everything straight out to where, and slope the drainage out. But anyway, we'll worry about that later on. Mr. Litz talked about a mini yard. We need to have restrooms on the far end, whether we buy 2 cranes or keep one, just 1 crane. We'd like to have a place where we can store the crane there overnight. If they're working on 16, there's no point in rolling it all the way to 15 and then bringing it back. What we'd like to do is just have an enclosed area there where we can put it up. Of course, the restrooms for the longshoremen is a must. We've got to have it. We're adding something in there, a small mini office for our folks to operate out of, but that's not going to cost that much money. In looking at the next bullet there, rehabilitate and expand the existing storage patio, we think we can save some money if we design that ourselves and if we do that with our maintenance forces. So we could probably cut that cost in half. Phase 2 is down the road ways. Storage warehouse number 16 might be needed, might be not needed, but we'll keep it in there. But we're not looking for any funding for 16 at this time. You look at the railroad adjacent to the dock, that's going to be tricky. All along we felt like we wanted a railroad in there. It's going to be tricky as to how we're going to connect to the main line. It's been suggested that we go to the east and go between the cargo dock and the lease there with U.S. Clay, and then swing it around. I've looked at that, and we're going to have to modify some leases. It's going to be pretty hard. But anyway, the railroad needs will later on, if they surface, then we'll look at it. In the meantime, what we probably will do is keep that in mind, and as we execute leases, be reserving some property in there for potential rate.
And just to add to those comments, going back to the cranes, we've certainly brainstormed about that and what our true needs are with our core business, and that's what we're addressing here. And the consideration of putting gantry crane rails in the dock is an additional expense, but on that, the newer cranes like the Galtwall that we have, and I know Herman can attest to that, because he's lived with it day to day. is that these new cranes, the rubber tire cranes, are so versatile as far as getting around on the dock and also as far as the variety of cargoes they can handle, because we are a multi-purpose port at this time. It can do a great job with containers. It can do like 25 moves an hour, which is a good level of productivity. But at the same time, right now, it's doing our steel, which is our bread and butter, and it did very well with the coal as well. Just to give some examples of why our thinking is going that way, and we can save considerable money by not having to put the rails in the dock at this time, and some other things. So that's sort of the inclination we have at this point.
This is the, you want to handle that, Mr. List?
Go ahead, please.
We have put in here an estimated project schedule. It's very, very fine-tuned, you know. We're looking at 30 months. The other dock took much longer than that, but we think we can cut in some areas the designs, especially, you know, and maybe the procurement of a consultant. I think the key to what you're seeing there is the first one. The tool and method of financing, construction, and/or operation, and that's that. And the U.S. Corps of Engineers permit are the key, and of course bringing in an engineer on board. The sooner we bring in the engineer on board, the sooner we can go with the design. Of course, we can't go with the design without knowing how we're going to pay for this thing. So, but everything falls into place in there. We put in there a site improvement of the construction, and it goes from about 12 months to 26 months. Again, that's a little tight. The other one took over 2 years just to construct. And and you'll see there that item number 6 is hydraulic dredging. Of course, that can't take place until your sheet pile and everything's in place. But we feel like, and Hector and I have been talking about this, is that we can, at certain time during the construction of phase 5, and all of that would be one contract, 5 and 6. But the contractor, knowing that he's got a certain amount of days to complete this thing, would probably bring in the dredging folks, early in the game on this thing.
Well, just one additional comment for make sure that everybody understands. The USACE, which is a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the permitting process, we're going to start that simultaneously now. So we don't lose any time in the any steps that we can do simultaneously will get us at the final date much better.
Let's go back to that slide there, Armand. And this is a way that we see the avenues to explore the project development. I've talked a little bit about it earlier, but in-house development of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit, hire an engineering firm who design Dock 15. I put that in there, but that's way. I'm not really, this is up to the board. I'm not saying we need to do this, but this is consideration. We would save. Certainly we would save some months there. And then possibly explore the design-build approach. Jim Brown is here, Mr. Brown is here. I'm the old-fashioned type of the design-build. I really don't like it, but it's a way that we can go.
Who was the engineer that designed Dock 15?
Shannon Mosley. We had laid out in there some potential, and I know this is on the agenda also today, but this is very, very rough, crude financial plan. Rather than get federal funds. The federal funds, what we've done in there is we've noted that 9.6, we would have about a 20% share this year, and I think that was figured at $12 million, Hector? And or wrote some bonds, and there'll be a report from Mr. Martin on that later on, and possibly a bank loan, and then there's, I'm sure, other ways of funding that we didn't put in there. We just wanted to put something just for discussion purposes.
Okay. Very good. That's the program to now. We want to stay on schedule, and some items coming up that hopefully will keep us on schedule with this. Thank you, sir.
Anything else, Mr. List? In your report?
On my report, no, that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any questions?
I've got a question. On the survey on our property on South Padre Island, reading today's paper, the county's talking about a, large development there, and that would be, if the property is where I think it is, would be a real good place to put a cruise ship line to land there. So I'm just wondering,
yes,
a timetable on that survey.
Commissioner, we do have, we're in the process of contracting a surveyor. We were discussing that this morning. And Nina, when do they expect to go down there?
We, of course, backtrack a little bit. Daniel, Mr. Renfro, sent a letter to the county and told them, if we don't hear from you by the 28th, I think it was, or 27th, we want to go ahead on with our survey. And they did respond. They said, go ahead and do the survey. Just contact Mr. Mendez there, whenever you go in there. In the meantime, I had been talking to Jim Holdart, and he sent me a proposal for about $2,200 to do the survey. I had a reservation in the indemnification, and I ran it by Daniel, and then Daniel made a suggestion to the extent permitted by law, then we would indemnify, so forth and so on. So I've sent it back to him. As a matter of fact, I faxed it to him today and asking him to include that clause in there. Daniel, I think you're comfortable with what they posted there. So if I get it back today, I'd say it depends on their schedule. It could probably be in there next week. But now it's going to hinge on Hogarth's schedule. But that's where we are right now.
Yeah, in a month or two, we ought to have it for sure.
Easy.
Well, and I want to thank you, Commissioner Gaiman, for reminding us about this. You've been talking about this for at least 6 months.
Longer than that.
Longer than that, at least 6 months. And thank you for keeping it front and center in our attention. Hopefully by the time that April rolls around, we'll have that survey completed.
I would like to ask staff if they can please provide us with a list of our 2006 schedule for trade shows, because at this time usually it gets upon us and we're all trying to make it, and I think it would be good for us to have at least a preliminary of dates, make sure that there's no conflicts, make sure the people that attend these trade shows that actually contribute to most of the cost of these trade shows can go, and we can go forward. Because I think we had a good year last year in the trade shows, and I think it would be a good idea for us to keep that going.
I'll assist with that.
Okay, thank you. And on a sadder note, I just want to, we haven't mentioned it, but with my recent loss in my family, it really touched me really hard when the person here at the port, we had a tragedy here last week, and I just want to say from behalf of the port and our staff that we really feel and send our condolences to the family, and I hope they can overcome their hardship, and we as a port are, anything we can do for them, I would appreciate.
Anything else? Any other questions? All right, let's move to item number 3, presentation of the Employee of the Year Award. Joe?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this was not an easy decision. We had a lot of good candidates this year, but I think we came up with a real winner. And at this time, I'd like to present a check for $1,000 to Andy Jimenez. Andy.
What is in there?
Congratulations, Andy.
Yeah. Congratulations, Andy.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
If I could just mention a couple of the highlights of Andy's activities were in several occasions he's jumped out in emergencies and been on the scene helping people in need to come around with situations they had. We really appreciate, Andy, you being there for us and being very helpful. Very caregiving. Thank you.
And I also want to salute you, Andy, on behalf of the board. We shared in the joy of commissioning you We were all here when you were sworn into office. You've made us all very proud. George, Chief Gavito, you should also be proud for selecting a fine man like this to serve on our board, to serve on our force. And we salute both of you. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. All right, item number 4, presentation by the Port of Brownsville marketing team.
Okay. As everybody probably is aware, last fall the board contracted Tony Vassell and Associates to help us with our marketing effort as we try to diversify and try to get into the container business, the roll-on, roll-off, the low, all kinds of activities, the short sea shipping, or the major container flow through a land bridge operation, and so on. I think we have 2 of the representatives here today, Tony Vassell and Ted Schroeder, who have worked very hard to start to put us on track with a lot of the information that we really didn't have up in the Northeast and other areas to put us on this path. And of course, we've blended this in with our own marketing folks here, Tony and Herman, and everybody's worked very closely as a unit, as a team, towards the Port of Brownsville, the BND objectives of being a bigger player in these opportunities that are out there that other areas are enjoying, and we're now moving on. So, Tony Vassell, because we have 2 coming here. Tony Rodriguez and Tony Vassell.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Commissioners, Port of Brownsville employees, and ladies and gentlemen. And thank you.
You're very welcome.
We at the Port of, or at A.J. Vassell Associates are very pleased and proud that we were selected to be part of the Port of Brownsville marketing team. And although we've been operating a short period of time, we have worked together, and at this point in time, I'd like to introduce everybody from the marketing team. Although it's dark here, we still might be able to identify. Of course, our leader, Bernie List. Then we have 2 very capable marketing directors here at the Port of Brownsville, Herman Rico, Tony Rodriguez. And with us today we have Ted Schroeder. Ted has vast experience as a top-level executive in the steamship agency business, and he provides us with wise counsel. Another associate, Jim Dorick, is manning the offices back in New Jersey, and he's the individual, well, he was an owner's representative with one of the ocean carriers, and he's the individual that did the graphics on this presentation. And what the objective of the Brownsville marketing team is that to identify opportunities and to develop profitable business for the Port of Brownsville. And we'll try to make a brief presentation on what we've worked on so far. We'll try to cover briefly cargo flows and cargo information sources. You don't operate without intelligence and information, and we present that to our prospects. We'll cover the ocean carriers, some of them we focused on, and what we want to do with the container carriers. One of the other objectives is to develop a container on board service, a feeder service between the Port of Brownsville, Houston, or other ports. The steel market, needless to say, very important to the Port of Brownsville. We're resurrecting some checking into the Toyota plant in San Antonio. We'll cover that briefly. The lumber market, identified as a potential new market. Down the road, big box stores. And the cruise market. We mentioned gathering of intelligence earlier, and this is a base of information that was developed by Herman. And Herman, would you please take a few moments?
Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. List, that is an example of a listing that, a database that we've been putting together over the last 5-6 years. It's a mixture of different exports, imports, and that's something that we try to keep up on a monthly basis and bring it up to speed to convince or part of a plan to convince the shipping lines and saying, yes, we do have the volume, yes, it's coming in through here, it's going out through here, but it's being trucked, it's not going over water. So that's a short example of what is moving at the present time through the valley and over the road to Houston.
You know, you look at LG Electronics alone, that's a major shipper, 250 container loads per week.
Yes, sir.
That's amazing.
Yes, sir.
It's amazing.
And that
the
is
volume is going right past us here, so now we're focusing to get it on the water here. Okay.
Right.
We're proposing to make more work for Mr. De Los Santos, right?
If you can keep me in town.
You won't have to mow lawns.
Thank you, Herman. And if you'll notice also that Herman and the group here have identified Africa as another potential market. And then up there in New Jersey, we have information source that will complement and work with the information that's developed here. In this case, it's Bayer Corporation in Pittsburgh. Moving on down, the commodities they have are chemicals. And what this report shows is there are 3 main ports. Houston is one of them. And they ship to the various countries, the Republic of China and others. Another example is a company in Philadelphia, BDP International, a freight forwarder. They're also a chemical shipper. Houston is their largest export port. They're going to Brazil and other countries. And just as another example, Target Shipping in New Jersey, they're a non-vessel operating carrier. They're involved in iron and steel products. Houston is one of the ports, and they're going to Africa. So if we tie this type of information together, we can start going to the ocean carriers and saying, look, we've got enough business for you to consider making a vessel call here at the Port of Brownsville. Now, just a couple of examples of efforts we've made with various ocean carriers. Bermuda International Shipping, located in New York. They operate a weekly container service between Salem, New Jersey and Hamilton, Bermuda. I've known the president for a long period of time, and in talking with them, there are no plans at this point in time to run anything from the Gulf to Bermuda. But the family has other vessels they operate in other trades that they may be able to bring out of some other trades into the Gulf. At the present time, they're pleased with what they have going, and they're going to remain steady at the same time. But these are the type of contacts we attempt to make. And another example along that line is an independent container line out of Richmond. They operate a weekly container service from Richmond to Northern Europe. And what we developed was the fact that they had some new vessels coming on board, and they would be available in the near future. And we also picked up information and intelligence that indicated that they might be beginning a service into Mexico. Well, we checked that information out with the folks in Richmond and the people in New Jersey, and what is going to transpire is the new vessels will replace the existing vessels, and the existing vessels will be taken off hire. So we spent the time in identifying the opportunity, but in this case, the opportunity hasn't presented itself. If they bring additional tonnage on, then they would be a target or a prospect. Nordana Line, Staten Island. As Bernie mentioned, we're looking to various types. Roll on, roll off this carrier. They perform that. They have heavy lift capability, and about 5% of their business is containerized. And what we did is we analyzed their trade lanes, and they have 4 different services operating here in the United States. And we could endeavor to, you might say, work with any one of those, but the one we're trying to focus on is the West Africa on the top left, tying in Tampico, Houston, coming across to Miami. And what we're trying to do, what they said, is if we could get them $100,000 worth of ocean revenue, they would come in on an inducement call. So we're looking at the containers in Africa and other things we're identifying so that we could put enough business together for them to come in on inducement. That's the beginning. And the last of the ocean carriers that we'll cover at this point in time is Zim America. We were looking at them from a direct vessel call and also barge feeder service. And their leader, Tommy Stramer, we understand is a forward thinker, and there are some other opportunities that might be brought to forth in the future with Tommy. But at the present time, we attacked from a number of different angles. Ted Schroeder, our associate, spoke with him in Norfolk and also Houston. And then Bernie List was in Houston, was it last week, Bernie?
Last week, that's correct.
Right, and Bernie made contact with their regional vice president, and looks like we're making some headway.
If I could just expand on that,
Yeah.
it was quite interesting. I really appreciate Mr. Schroeder's follow-up, because that was key. The timing was right. I asked to go over and see him. He said he was busy that afternoon, but we could talk on the phone a little bit. And precisely what Hermana showed in his stats, a lot of this maquila and the business that we have over here is moving in an eastbound direction. And in the container trailer business, the success is to have a balance. So he started telling about how their new service coming from the Far East, that's what you call an all-water service coming through the canal, is going to be coming into Kingston and some other things, but it's going to come into Houston. So, on those type of runs, there are paddle fans for Home Depot, there are all kinds of goodies for Walmart, and the valley is growing. So it's not just Brownsville, but we can serve as a center for the distribution of cargo for all of this area. So I started talking to him. Well, you probably your major call is for Houston, the distribution in that area, but what about the consideration of a feeder into the port of Brownsville, which we're already working on? He said, I'm very interested in learning more about that. That would what you call the line haul vessel, if it doesn't have enough containers to come into the port of Brownsville, a feeder is the first step, and then when you get your volume built up, then it was. So we're going to continue those conversations to be able to, and he is the person, he is the decision maker that can help us pull this off. But again, if we have say 20 container loads a week coming from Houston to feed into the valley, and we are successful in getting 40 or 50 going the other way, all of a sudden the carriers and the people that you're talking to, that everybody's approaching, they start to step up to the plate and listen, because they see an opportunity, and they start thinking, well, if I don't take the opportunity now, my competitors, because all of a sudden the freight is building up, and the carrier will always ask you, where is the cargo? I will go there, and I think in your numbers there, we'll see that they won't come here for less than $100,000 of revenue per call. So that's like the minimum, and that's to break even and then build on it. So I think, and just to back up, Mr. Schroeder was our representative when I was at the Port of Tampa, and let me tell you, he's a very determined individual. He's one of my mentors in the business, and one of the things that they always said about Mr. Schroeder, he can open those doors. Well, we'd go in and see the carriers, and Zim was one of them, and so the Port of Tampa now has Zim making a call at their port. So I think we can continue the success, and we'll soon have them in here.
And we're attacking from all angles. Jim Durick and I are also talking to the VP of the North Atlantic and Staten Island. And so you look at the standpoint, what you try to do is in some cases maybe just one individual contacting line. But in this case, Zim is a large corporation running many vessels throughout the world. So if we're attacking with different individuals at different levels and different departments, we feel that over the long term we'll have more success. And this is just an example of us trying to develop additional break bulk or heavy lift and project cargo business. In the New York and New Jersey area, we have a long-term relationship with Universal Land Sea, who are agents for jumbo navigation. And they send us these pieces of information, a vessel available here or there. We sent this down, and down at the bottom, they were looking for employment, Caribbeans or Mexico. So we circulated around, we talked. There were no opportunities for this particular vessel, but we're talking about spot business, inducement business. So this is one of the examples of the type of business we're going after. And one of the main objectives is developing a container on barge service between the ports in the Gulf and Port of Brownsville. And at this point in time, I'll pass the program over to Herman to talk about the tug barge service.
Again, as you all can see, there's the first three lines that we have up there, two out of Houston and one of New Jersey. Osprey line, as we all recall, last year was here for about 7 months, made about 6 to 7 port calls. For one reason or another, being that they were not moving containers from shipping lines, it was all a domestic move. The economics was not in the program. Again, we're going back and talking to them. Columbia Coastal is another one that's very interested. Unfortunately, they have a large presence in the East Coast and do not know the market very well in the Gulf Coast. But it's an opportunity. The last one, Couch Lines, is a brand new line from one of the ex-owners of Osprey Line, who was bought out and now is a multimillionaire and is looking for several vessels. But unfortunately, at this time, he has told us he has no vessels available. But Brownsville would be a very positive outlook for Couch Lines. So that's where we are, more or less. Again, I stress again, Osprey Line, we have been talking to them from what Mr. List and Mr. Bassel have been talking about. We have contacted Osprey. We have told them of the conversations with Simline. They have been talking back and forth about moving containers down this way. We have another prospect that's also interested, is a terminal handler for a lot of the other shipping lines. So I think the wheels are turning, us, as they say, and we made it very clear to Osprey: either you come in or you don't, and if you don't, there's two right behind you. So the wheels are turning, and hopefully 2006 is going to be the year to bring in short sea shipping into the Port of Brownsville.
And just to add to that is that, Osprey Line, that would be a barge, so it's a more economical service. It fits very well with what we were talking earlier about the possible feeder service to connect us initially with Houston. And again, if the volume grows here, then Zimline could bring their line haul vessels straight into. We have the deep water to be able to accommodate them.
Thank you, Herman. The other two notes on the Ro-Ro service, roll-on, roll-off planning stage, a company called Road Ships. One of their principals is in Fort Lauderdale, headquarters, Australia. Both Mr. List and I know the principal personally. That's down the road. The articulated barge service, Marine Highways, is part of Kirby Corporation, which owns Osprey Lines, which bought out Rick Couch, and who's established Couch Line. So it becomes a rather tangled web, you might say. And those last two would be domestic services, 53-foot domestic trailers and containers. Meanwhile, the other would be a tug barge service, international containers. And now, one very near and dear to everybody's heart here is the still market. And if you would, please, Mr. Tony Rodriguez.
The still market, as you know, it's our number one commodity here at the Port of Brownsville. So basically, we're going to be working hand in hand with our Northeast representatives. We have, as you know, we have tagged our Mexican customers, but now what we're actually going to do, we're going to change a little bit of our strategies and focus a little bit more too on our suppliers to our customers. And these are currently some of our customers that we're working on. U.S. Steel, Essilor, Firestone, Ucor Steel, Duferco, Thiessen, and Core. With this, we took Tech Schroeder's recommendation, and we're associate members to the American Institute of International Steel, which will give us a little bit more focus. With the Port of Brownsville, it's been a big player in the steel market in the last 5 or 6 years, and basically will give us a little bit more focus on what actually the Port of Brownsville is doing to the steel industry.
Thank you, Tony.
I'd just like to add, Arcelor is a major player worldwide, and some of these are. It behooves us to really be close to them and their activities, and you know, steel is a commodity. We always have to look closely at what China's doing. For example, a little hiccup from them can change the whole market. So we have to be tuned in with, like Tony Vassal mentioned earlier, with the intelligence of all of this, but just to repeat, we did close to 2.5 million tons of steel through this port last year. So that's our core business, and we need to be very aware of that. On top of that, we did attend the steel conference in Tampa recently, and we're going to further our presence there for next year. In fact, the 3 stevedores here at the Port of Brownsville have committed to go in with a big sponsorship, all 4 of us together. We're going to take the highest sponsorship in that steel conference, the 18th, which is coming up next February, and have a big presence along with some of the other major ports that are handling steel, and the ocean operators, the people that come from Europe and so on, at one time a year to mingle and work with their customers is what we're doing there. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to digress for just a moment and go back to this slide regarding the short sea shipping. Mr. Cristiano, you mentioned about trade conferences and different functions taking place. March 20 and 21st of this month in Orlando, Florida, they're having the 4th annual Short Sea Shipping Conference, and Herman Rico will be attending, possibly Mr. List, and you will be, yes, okay.
I'm trying to get there.
And my associate Jim Durick and I will also be there attending that and trying to identify opportunities. Toyota Motor Company. Donna Haymard a few years ago had made a foray into Toyota, and what we're doing is we're resurrecting that. And what we've identified at the San Antonio plant, they have 21 Tier 1 suppliers. What our objective is to identify the supplier's supplier so that we can work with them to identify business and get some business here for the Port of Brownsville. So what we did, first of all, I used to work for the Port of Jacksonville, Florida, called a friend of mine at Southeast Toyota. He gave me a name of a contact in San Antonio. Also, some general contacts at their U.S. headquarters at Erlanger, Kentucky. Then I was out on business in Los Angeles and visited with Toyota Logistics in Torrance, California. And what we found out there was they and Torrance are not involved, and we are headed in the right direction with the San Antonio, the Erlanger people as identified. So Donna will be working on that. The lumber market. Tony?
Part of our diversification, that's the word that's being used lately, and you heard it a couple of times already this morning. And we actually have identified the lumber market. Right now, there's a big imports into Mexico, Tampico, Altamira. We have identified those suppliers, and we're going to be here working with them to see if we can diversify or divert some of that cargo from Tampico, Altamira to the Port of Brownsville. Actually, they're serving the northeast area for Mexico. I think the Port of Brownsville would be ideal for them. Again, we've been working with the Port of Pittsburgh. They had some suppliers out there, and matter of fact, we had several conference calls. Tony and I had several conference calls with Chin McCarville, and they actually were the ones that were approached us first. They told us that they had suppliers that they were right now currently shipping into Mexico, but the rate by rail and over the road transportation is a little bit, it's getting too expensive, and they're experimenting and sending some barge movements from the port of Pittsburgh down to the Port of Brownsville into Mexico. So that's our market.
Thank you. We've targeted that. This is more of a long-term type thought process, Herman.
Big box stores, what we refer to on that slide is volume makers, companies such as Walmart and H-E-B that handle volume. We have presently have contacted Walmart Logistics, and we have discussed their logistics. One of the advantages that Walmart has for the port, in a good way or a bad way, they recently opened a 3 million square foot distribution center in the Port of Houston. So that kind of helps, and it could help and it could not help, but anyway, we've made contact with them. The other one is HEB. It's a Texas company. We've contacted them in San Antonio, and we're looking at their logistics. We're wanting to find out what they do, how they move it, and see how we can play a part with, again, going back to all this, the container service and back and forth, and just trying to see the head on with the big movers, the big box stores that handle volume, which would, like they say, most of the time break the ice for a lot of these projects.
Yeah, and Hermong, even what you're saying about the distribution center in Houston, when we're talking about the feeder, again, Zim, I know, handles a lot of that freight. It's what you call a straight load. It's just one container that will go to the HEB store or to Walmart, especially coming from the Far East. That will bypass the distribution center because it makes economic sense not to go in and handle it and take it out again. And this is what we're looking at, going direct to Walmart, the Home Depot, all the receivers here, and all of a sudden you've cut down their inland freight by $400, $600, $800. They're going to like us a lot because we're saving money for them.
And on that note, as you all, during the holiday season, you pass by any Walmart, and on the back of the Walmart you see at least 15 to 20 containers, which is what Mr. List is saying. They bypass the distribution center, they go directly to the store, and you overcome that extra cost.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Herman. And now, we have the cruise market. Tony?
The cruise industry, this is an exciting project for us. It's new to the community itself. Matter of fact, last board meeting it was mentioned something of maybe hiring somebody that could look into the cruise industry. And it happens that we already had been working under the Mr. List's the lead. He gave us some good context, and actually they're having a big conference in the next 2 weeks. But we decided to wait to attend that conference. We're setting up a committee that would involve the travel agencies. They're going to be a big part of it. The Brownsville Convention and Visitors Bureau, the South Padre Island Convention and Visitors Bureau, Continental Airlines, City of Matamoros, and the City of Brownsville, and the Port of Brownsville to get together, put up a package, and go visit the 3 major cruise airlines in Miami. And we're hoping, hopefully by mid-May, I think.
Mid-May, we're going to try to do that. And basically, it's Royal Caribbean, Norwegian Cruise Lines, and Carnival, which is the largest in the world. And of course, we'll be small potatoes for them. But at the same time, we're thinking all kinds of things. You know, with the heavy storm season last fall, last summer. We've already been telling them you need to look at somebody like us as an alternate option for emergency or on a permanent basis. And we're starting to develop a market of potential passengers here in the valley already as we grow, and people are starting to have a little bit more extra cash to spend for things.
So sorry to interrupt. One thing that, just by what you're saying, that it sounds great. I think you should try to see if we can get the same group that you mentioned.
Yes.
And try to have the companies come to our area during that month before hurricane season, just in case, and have them come see the weather, and they can actually see it firsthand, the island, Matamoros, the distances. Because I don't think we give the area justice when we go to another area and tell them how close and how nice and warm our weather is. So maybe, so
if we can convince them to come, that would be the ideal.
Because
a lot of times
the cost overall, the cost will be cheaper to bring in them to come here than it would to have every entity going over there. It would be cheaper to have them come here, even if we had a seminar or something for them here.
That's a great suggestion, and if we can pull that off, but maybe our first step is go down there and invite them to come, but we'll keep you posted, and we'll include you in the committee, by the way.
Thank you. That's what I get for speaking up.
Like Ted was actually the one that gave us because they're always looking for ports of calls, especially in this area. So we're very excited about this project. Good work.
Okay, thank you. And here we are at the end, but no, not really. It's just the beginning. Thank you.
Very good, Tony. Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you.
Good presentation.
Well, does anybody have any questions? You know, this is exciting for us as commissioners. We've been talking about our marketing efforts for some time, and to see it actually taking shape and you know, see us talking like we're talking, thinking big. You know, if we were sitting in the Port of New Jersey, Tony Vassell and Ted Schroeder, we'd tell you to go for it. But since we're sitting in the Port of Brownsville, we say dale gas. It means the same thing.
Thank you.
But honestly, keep up the good work. We know that you have to water the plant before you see the fruit, but keep watering. Okay.
We appreciate the opportunity to do our best.
And salutes also to Tony and to Herman and Mr. List and Donna for doing all that you're doing in our marketing efforts. We want to continue that good and important work. Okay, next item on our agenda is item number 5, receive presentation on financing options for construction of Dock 16. We've talked about this, we mentioned this in passing in terms of the schedule that was up on the presentation that we'll actually be considering and acting on in a couple of items more. Mr. Liz, how do you want to handle this presentation? Do we want to, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, I think Mr. Martin was going to make a little presentation, so if you'd like to come up.
Thank you. My name is Paul Martin. I'm an attorney with Winstead, Sechrist, and Minnick out of the San Antonio office. I've been practicing law in this area for 39 years. So it's exciting to me, but it's dry as dirt probably to everybody else. So I'll try to hurry through this. I've prepared a memorandum, even with footnotes. So if you're interested in more detail about what I'm saying, I think it's available to you. We looked at the legal possibilities, the menu, if you will, for financing Dock 16. It's kind of difficult to talk about this from just the legal perspective, and we really need your financial advisor to kind of weigh in here too about what they feel the numbers would do. So what I'm talking about are the legal possibilities here. First, the district could call an election and have what's called general obligation or tax bonds for this purpose. Obviously, that is the highest rating or highest quality of debt that the district could issue. But of course, it requires an election, and would take some additional time because the elections these years are there's only 2 times a year you can hold the elections. You'd have to go through the Department of Justice approval process and so forth. The second best debt in terms of rating would be a general revenue bond. The district has outstanding revenue bonds that require, in order to issue revenue bonds as a first lien basis, that there be a 1.4 times average annual debt service requirement, that you have 1.4 times the annual debt service for the last 24 months. Now, the problem there, it seems to me, is one of accounting. Can we show for bond purposes the 1.4 times in a different purpose than perhaps an audit purpose. So I don't know how that works until we talk to the auditor. But that's a highly rated type of transaction. The other thing you need to consider is how much of private use we're going to have here. Docks are considered okay for what's called private activity bonds. You don't have the complication of having volume caps and all those sorts of things, but it's there are things that you have to meet if you have private persons using the dock. As explained here, it looks like it's a purely public purpose. So I won't go into all these details about private activity bonds, but there are some restrictions on that. If the district decides to not issue general obligation bonds, and we decide that the revenue bond process is not available to us, then they have two ways of going about the transaction by using conduits. In a conduit fact situation, the board creates a separate entity, a corporate entity, and then turns right around and contracts with that entity for financing and construction. The entity then issues the debt payable from the contract with the district. That debt then becomes operation expenses in terms of the accounting basis, and so it's not as highly rated as the revenue bonds. In fact, the rating agencies would probably nick one point down, but they're insurable by bond insurance companies, and so would probably be a way to go if that's the way the board would like. Conduit bonds, you can issue two kinds. One is, or have two conduits. One is called a public facility corporation. Again, it's created by the board, and it is a separate entity, and I've listed all the powers in my memorandum, but suffice to say it could do what we need to do. The other type of conduit is an industrial development corporation. Again, it has the powers necessary to do the financing. Another question asked of us was what are the delivery mechanisms? The law with respect to navigation, your navigation district, is real broad in terms of the selection of the delivery. That is to say, you can have design builds, you could have construction manager agent, you could have construction manager at risk, and then of course there are other delivery mechanisms, including competitive bidding, etc. Another question has been, what about public-private partnership situations where you have a private entity actually taking a partial ownership of the project? We think that can be done. It's not a usual situation. It's not something that is used every day, but it's becoming more common in a lot of ways. You see a lot of this in the toll road concepts, a lot of it in water supply as well. So I think the law is broad enough if the district wants to entertain a public-private concept as well. Some of the issues, I've identified a few at the last page. Firstly, in revenue bonds, is the coverage question about whether or not the accounting and the debt service coverage requirements could be met. If we issue general revenue bonds, then this dock becomes part of the entire system, and so the entire revenues of the district can be used. If it's through a conduit, then you don't have all of those revenues to be used, but you have the contractual requirement to be done. Again, we need to determine what the business transaction, what the board wants to do in terms of the business transaction. And I think the bottom line from a legal perspective is that we have all the tools necessary to perform the function, whatever the business decision is. Happy to answer questions.
Just first of all, thank you for coming down and making the presentation today. As we're trying to fast track our objectives here, but have talked briefly with Debbie Duke and to maybe we can and also Donna to work a little more closely in the next few days to somehow with you find what would be the best one or two scenarios for the port to sort of narrow it down so we can go ahead and come to the board for.
And of course, your financial advisor, Rowdy Hinojosa, has a lot of experience and so forth in these areas as well. So we'd want to include them. Again, it's a matter of numbers as far as I can tell. From a legal perspective, I think you have all the tools you need.
Okay. Of course, the other, I guess another financing option that we would have available to us, Mr. Martin, is if we just decided to finance it with a local bank.
Oh, sure. Well, of course, the bank would want to have an instrument that is permitted by law, and so one of these kinds of things. The purchaser, I've not tried to identify how to market the bonds. In order to market, you have several ways to market bonds. You can go into a public competitive sale. You could do an underwriting with specific underwriters or a specific underwriter. You could privately place with bank or banks. All of those are available under any of these scenarios.
I got my reading set for this weekend. I don't know about anybody. Make my head spin.
So I'd be happy to answer questions anytime you like.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Okay. We're going to turn it over then to our next item, which is item number 6. Consider and act on engaging the services of an engineering firm for the design and construction management for proposed Dock 16. Mr. Gutierrez?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I want to clarify one point before I get into this. When you were looking at the schedule, and I think I used the word conservative schedule, it's an ambitious schedule more than conservative, so that needs to be clarified. What we have done in here, and of course to get this thing going, like we stated earlier, is first we need to see where the money's going to be coming from and if the money's available, and then the next thing is getting an engineer on board. And there's two avenues here that how we can get an engineer on board. Is one of them is just outright go to the designer, the previous designer, Shiner Mosley, which is now HDR Shiner Mosley, or go with a brand new RFP, which they would also be eligible to submit a proposal.
If we went that route, Mr. Gutierrez, would we be able to keep the schedule?
No, sir. We would probably take a little longer in bringing them on board. And we, on Dock 15, I went and took checked on this. By the time when we had started advertising for engineers, and by the time we had them signed up, we negotiated and everything, we were looking at 7 months. I think in here, if we were to be authorized to negotiate a contract with China Mosley, we would probably negotiate within 2 weeks, and at the next board meeting, come in and make a presentation to you on what we've negotiated.
the contract would follow. Now, I guess in answer to your question, we would be looking at about 30 days.
Extra?
Yeah, 30 days to have somebody on board if we went with China Mosley. Now, what I did was I asked China Mosley to give me a proposal as to, what their fee would be, knowing that a lot of the work has been done already, because in a way it's going to be a mirror image of 15, with the exception that we are going to want to have a pre-design conference with the stevedores, with the board, and whoever, to go over any changes that we feel like we want to make from the 15. And I see some slight changes that we need to do, which is not going to be that much, and go from there. If you look at your handout in there, China Mosley responded on February 27th, and they're coming in with their figures. Look at the very end, and there's a table there. And like Regent and Doc Design, they are quoting anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000. When I was talking to them, I told them I wanted a good ballpark figure with nothing binding, and this figure is probably plus or minus 10%. If you look at the 500 and the 600 and go to the average, well, the average is within 10% of both extremes. I guess in summary, what we've been able to analyze in here is that we can probably get a fee from them about $850,000, or maybe about a $400,000 savings on this thing compared to their original proposal. Now, one thing that we've got to be real careful, I have to be real careful in here, is we cannot go in and seek bids for engineering services. And what I've done in here, merely for the record, is I've asked for a proposal, and just to see where we are in the thing, and this is legitimate on the thing, but I could not go to another firm and says, how much will you do it for? Because that, in effect, would be circumventing the bid process, bid law. So you have the figures before you, and I guess what we're looking for is some direction from the board.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Gutierrez, two questions. I wasn't here when Dock 15 was built with Roy and Commissioner Collins, Commissioner Gaiman. Did we have any problems with Shiner Mosley?
No.
Never did.
Were they on schedule? Within budget?
I was not on board either, but they were on schedule.
Within budget?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to say something about it. It makes sense if we're going to build a dock exactly like the one we already built, to hire the same engineering company, because the majority of the work has already been done. Plus, it'll speed up our schedule. The steel companies have already told us that they're going to be bringing in more steel, and we need to be ready. So I think going through a bid process, picking different firms, it just makes sense to me to hire the one that's already done it to do another one just like it, and definitely will speed up the process.
If we hire an engineering firm now, does that limit our financing options?
Financing of the
construction. Are we then locked into?
It could, primarily because if you go to a firm that's got a design build, or somebody that's going to finance it, very strong possibility is that they might want to say, well, we'd like to have our engineers do this. We are more comfortable with firm X or whatever.
So that would be the only option that would be off the table then, if we hired our engineering firm, the design build would be off the table?
Yes, it probably would be.
Did you have anything, Dan?
That's what I was going to say. I don't know that it limits your financing options, because I would think we could make the contract with Shiner Mosley assignable, so that if you decided to do a private facilities corporation or industrial development corporation, you could assign that contract to the new corporation. However, I believe that it would limit your delivery options. Namely, I don't see you hiring an engineering firm and then doing a design build project.
One thing that I might add with China Mosley,
they have merged with the HDR. HDR is probably one of the bigger engineering firms in the country, and I'm sure they're no strangers to design build.
We have set a policy on this board of bidding out services, even those that we're not required to bid out, like engineering services.
Can't bid out.
Well, in other words, send requests for proposals. Let me change that. And to open it up and let different firms compete. If there ever was a case of making an exception to that policy, this seems to be one such case where we've got cost savings that we can realize, some economy of scale, perhaps.
Well, my feeling on this is that if I was on this selection committee and I would look at the presentation, not been biased, but I would venture to say that they would have one leg up on the rest of the firms because they've done the work before.
Do we have anybody here from Shiner Mosley? Would you like to address the board? Just identify yourself, sir.
I'm Tom Rodino. I'm the senior maritime consultant with Shiner Mosley, and I have not been directly involved in the work for that Nino's been talking about, Cargo Dock 16, but have been with the firm for about 9 years. And certainly Cargo Dock 15, the design there, a lot of the work that was done previously for design is directly transferable to the new project. In addition to that, we have a lot of working experience here in the port with Oil Dock 5, as well as some of the other projects down here over the years. I think that the company is very interested in continuing to work with the port. I'm mentioned earlier on as well. One of the things that Nino pointed out is that Shiner Mosley and Associates was acquired by HDR Engineering just a little bit earlier this year. And so that gives us direct access to some other resources that we've had before as well.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions? Do we have anyone else representing an engineering company present? Mr. Brown?
Let me just suggest to the board that we go back to Paul's statement about you need to determine your business transaction, what you're going to do. Before you put this out for your proposal, if you go out for a group organization, which includes your design firm, your management firm, and your construction firm, you need to let those people get together and work that fee schedule out. There would be some savings to you, possibly, if you're going to go that route, that you put that out and let your entire team come together with a proposal and make their bid, as opposed to selecting one or two of the elements and then say, okay, now you guys have got to get together, because in a design build team, you've got the contractor at the table, you have the designer at the table, and financial people, and so everybody talks about how they're going to split the fee out. So there's some bargaining that occurs in that process. So that's the only thing I would suggest that you consider, is that you not go out for your proposal until you know exactly how you want to finance the project.
Well, that is correct. Is that if you do that, however the project's financed, you're looking at a traditional mode of delivery of hire a design team and then hire a construction team. What the total cost would be between a design build project and the traditional method of hire a designer and then hire a construction firm, I'm certainly not competent to say, and I don't know that anybody knows at this point whether there would be a net savings. I think that's what Mr. Brown's trying to say.
Every design build project that I've been into, you say, here's the project and here's what the market will allow you to take out in a fee. And so you get all the parties saying, okay, here's the donut, how many times are we going to slice it?
So we cannot say at this point that there would be an overall savings. Because the design build package might be a less total cost than hiring an engineer and then bidding out the construction project or hiring the construction firm some other way. We do not know that.
Peter, there's one thing What else I wanted to bring up is that we've been waiting on federal funds to build this dock for several years. And I think we're at the point that we can't wait any longer. So we're going to have to build it out of our pocket. You know, it might jeopardize funding that we have applied for. But I don't see that we can wait any longer.
Congressman Ortiz told Commissioner Del Santos and Director List and Deputy Director Emard and I and those that were in his office yesterday that in his 24 years in Congress, this is the worst he's ever seen for budgeted items. That all the money is going to Iraq. And of course the atmosphere in Washington as it is, it's the worst. He said it's the worst he's ever seen for federal dollars. I agree with you, Commissioner. I am concerned, though, Nino, about putting the cart before the horse and then leaving savings on the table. I am concerned about that. I don't want our options. You know, I'm trying to balance moving this project forward as quickly as possible and taking it off the talking stage and making it happen versus not limiting our options that would then cost us money.
I understand that.
So what's your
you will
prescription?
notice that I have not made a recommendation or position on it. But one thing that I might add to a comment that Mr. Gaiman made is that if we should get federal funding, what we would lose out in hiring the consultant right now would be the fees that for the consultant, because this is before the fact. In other words, we would have to put that now. Whether they being the federal government would give us credit in kind match for us furnishing the plans, and this happened in the railroad project, that's a possibility.
Let me ask you this: Would our U.S. Army Corps of Engineer permitting process be delayed in any way or hindered in any way by not acting today on this item?
No, sir. No, sir, because ACTR's doing that separate.
All right. Why don't we do this? I'm going to recommend that we table action on this item and take it up at the same time that we decide in 30 days what financing mechanism we're going to use. Does anyone agree with that?
I'll make the motion.
Have a motion to that effect, Commissioner
Second.
Collins. We have a second. Any discussion? All those, maybe we'll get a better deal even as it is in those 30 days. But we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. Item number 7, consider an act on project management schedule for construction of Dock 16 and appointment of project manager. Mr. List, we've talked about this during your presentation. Is there anything else to add?
No, sir. I believe that's as close as we can get it, and it's important for us to stay focused on our needs here with Dock 16.
Well, and I want to thank you for leading this and presenting to us for the first time ever in the history of this project an actual schedule. Gentlemen, if we pass this schedule, I think we should all regard it as a contract, so to speak, and that we're going to be disciplined by it and stick to it, which means that if we pass it today, based on this ambitious schedule, we would actually be operational in 30 months from today. If somebody can figure out what that is, just yell it out. 30 months from today. But and as you'll see in the first item is approval of method of financing, construction and or operation in March. What was that? What is it?
August of next year.
August of... No. 24 months plus... September of 08. September of 08. Just put that down. September of 08. Come on.
Your motivation.
So we're talking about
Hope Dock 15 can hold out and make it till then.
We're talking about approval of the method of financing at the Wednesday, April 5th board meeting. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. Item number 8, consider an act on extending, modifying, or terminating the contract of Esther Rodriguez Silva. This item is on the agenda because we had 4 commissioners at the last meeting, and now we have 5. Does anything else need to be said on this item?
We have given this a lot of consideration. Our needs in Mexico and all the discussions we've had on this. At the end of all of that, we still feel that our representation has not been all that we want it to be, and I think the recommendation that we could give today is to perhaps offer this person to serve us on a spot basis when we have a trade mission or a conference that we physically cannot attend, or economically being away, it costs us more to go there. That we pay this person something like $250 a day for their presence, or a fraction of a day if it runs into 2 days, and their travel expenses for those functions.
That would entail giving her notice of termination.
Of course.
Thanking her for her services.
Yes, sir. Of course.
And then utilizing her when one of us can't be there or one of our marketing folks can't be there.
Correct.
I think Esther is a very talented individual. I think she bears a lot of promise and potential, and I think that would be a very wise use of her abilities for us. I would just ask that when she is dispatched in that capacity, if this motion passes, that she only represent us at those. If we're paying her expenses and her travel, that she only be carrying our flag at those functions and no one else's.
Correct.
Okay. So, is it your recommendation then, Mr. List, that we do give her 30 days notice of the intent to?
It is. Yes.
We have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. Item number 9, consider and act on consultants' contracts. Item A, LeMunyon Group, LLC. Mr. List?
The LeMunyon Group, again, we've had a lot of discussion on that. From the port's perspective, we certainly want to get as much support as we can for the amount of money we're paying. I think I would like to recommend, if the commission so approves, that we pay Mr. LeMunyon $7,500 a month as a retainer, and then an additional $2,500 per month for his any travel and entertainment expenses that he have. We could lump that all together or segregate it out as the board chooses.
Either way, his payments by the port would not be greater than $10,000.
That is correct.
And would the $2,500 be a lump sum or up to $2,500 in expenses?
I like the latter.
Be up to. Okay. Up
It would be actual cost up to $2,500.
Well,
is that what did you discuss?
We had discussed getting away from all the invoicing and the monitoring of that invoicing.
I don't want to interrupt, but on the last meeting we already voted on this, and we left it to Bernard List to negotiate the contract with him, so he can just go ahead, and this conversation actually has already been discussed. He should go and negotiate with him and come back with what negotiation you came up with.
What is the contract you have negotiated with him?
It would be a flat $2,500.
Okay. All right. And that's for a year?
That's for 1 year, yes.
Starting March?
Starting
March of 06?
March of 06, or we could carry it to April, whatever's the choice there.
With a 30 days notice of cancellation by either party?
Yes.
That was in his last contract?
Yes. It was in the contract, yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes. Unfortunately, I wasn't here last meeting, and the reason I wasn't here is because I was on mission for the shrimp industry in Washington, D.C. They were been here for 50 years and contributed millions of dollars, or hundreds of millions of dollars to the economy. I went over there because, as you all know, last day of appropriations, I believe it was the 1st of March. So we went out there. We have an 8-state alliance, which all of us went to Washington to appropriate funds to continue the marketing program for the shrimp industry. We have the firm of Bob Livingston, which is in Washington, that's happened that. Each people from each state went and seen all the coastal congressmen and the senators. And of course we had the firm's people with us. three things we asked. One is, like I said, the marketing program to continue from what it was a couple of years ago when we had the first appropriation. The second thing we asked is for funds for Food and Drug Administration. Apparently, a lot of shrimp is coming into this country. It's not expected. And we went 2 or 3 times before them. They said, well, we shorthand, we don't have money to do this. So we asked them funds, I don't know if we'll get them or not, appropriate funds to give to Food and Drug Administration so they could inspect the shrimp coming in from current shrimp. Some of that shrimp is laden with antibiotics, which might be harmful to some humans, not all. But, you know, you might go into a restaurant, for instance, any restaurant that have imported shrimp, and you might get sick. You say, well, shrimp made me sick, but it might not be the shrimp, it might be the antibiotics in shrimp. Excuse me. The third thing we asked for is appropriation for funds for National Marine Fisheries Service. For years, National Marine Fisheries Service has been imposing laws, unnecessary, we think, for the shrimp industry. The latest, what we're asking appropriation for is to study the effort by the shrimp industry in the Gulf of Mexico. Apparently, National Marine Fisheries Service says we have tremendous effort, and we, the shrimp industry, claims, well, the efforts have been going down over the years by boats being put out of service, especially with the 2 hurricanes we had, Hurricane Katrina and Rita. A lot of boats were damaged there, put out of business. Also, the cost of fuel and the price of shrimp nowadays is that you go look at the fishing harbor, look at the boats there. In years past, you probably have maybe a tenth of the boats actually got. Now most of them are tied because of different things. So, apparently, I'm sorry. I apologize for not being here.
Right. You were missed, Commissioner. You were missed. And
apparently, just tell everybody that I went on my own ticket. I paid my own way. I paid my hotel. So the food didn't do nothing for me. That's why I wasn't here.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Okay, so did we vote on Lemunyon?
No, in fact, I haven't heard a motion.
Okay. So you have negotiated the contract with him already, Mr. List. Is that correct?
We approved.
We approved them already.
Okay. Yeah, I guess he's just reporting on the contract. He's just reporting on the contract that he negotiated. And you're authorized to sign it beginning in March of 06.
Yes.
Item B, PPS consult.
Wait, before we move, just I don't want to hinder ourselves into a situation where I agree with the 2,500. I have no problem with it. Should there be something that unexpected, we are asking to do something that incurs expenses? Is there something that a clause on there that it can be pre-approved? And I'm just talking about, I've been here 2 years and we have not had a situation that I can foresee, but in everything we should look beyond what we've experienced. So I'm just wondering if there should be a clause on there that anything above and beyond expenses cause me. I'm just bringing that up as a pause for discussion.
Would you talking about an emergency that would exist like we had on the shoaling? And all?
Yeah, I just don't know any expenses that may incur that. I don't want to hinder our, we're paying a lot of money. I don't want to, maybe for a situation happens, I don't want to damage that. Maybe a pre-approved situation where there's something. I don't know.
I would, in that case, I think the board director should take it on his own, see if it's merited or not, and.
Bring it to us.
Isn't that always, if you have a special, the board can approve additional travel if it's up and beyond?
Right. I just want to make sure it's on the contract so that it doesn't come back and say...
And Mr. Chairman, I would refer to you.
Well, I mean, if somebody's being paid a retainer, they should be providing the whole breadth of services to us at all times. So, anyway, item B, PPS consult.
Yes, on that one, we've also had conversations, different ways in looking at other areas, how they do theirs, and so on, to learn more what would be more effective for us. And again, the billing of this is one factor, and so would like to propose that we do the same thing with that, a $15,000 retainer, but within that $2,500 of it would be for travel and entertainment. And it would be a very practical way of doing that.
Again, so that the total payment by the Port of Brownsville would not be greater than
That is correct.
$15,000 per month?
Yes, sir.
Have you negotiated that with them also?
I didn't get a chance. The day ran out yesterday, but previously we had discussed that level for all activities for the port.
He's here. Should we?
Mr. DeLay's here.
Mr. DeLay? Do you want to address this?
Is there a specific question, or?
Did y'all?
Being that he's here, I didn't know if you'd like to, give us a. Would you like to say something or comment anything?
I would like to. We have not had an opportunity to discuss what was just proposed.
Hello, Randy. I didn't see you there.
First I've heard of it. But I do believe it's an appropriate time to address the board with. There seems to have been some discussions and some comments made in previous board meetings recently that come from either media sources or other mischaracterizations or misrepresentations, and I thought it would be an opportunity to address the board, and especially being that we have represented the port for quite some time, and several of the members of the commission have not been here all during that period of time, and or the director, to try to capsulize and summarize from whence we cometh. And also I think it's very important to start out those comments with that there's a lot of mention in the negotiations or discussions dealing with this contract and constant reference to Randy DeLay. I think it is important to present to the board that this contract is with a firm of public-private strategies, which is made up of 6 people, all 6 of which, including myself, are working for the Port of Brownsville on a daily basis and involved in a lot of numerous things, and our scope varies and is not just specific to lobbying, but we are a consultant for the port. And historically, I would like to, just for the purposes of those that are considering renewal of the contract, to realize I think there has been some statements made as to the lack of results coming from public-private strategies. I do understand and do respect that each commissioner is entitled to vote for and choose their representation as they so desire. But I do believe that it is important to have the truth out in front when that decision is made. The results, some of the results historically that some may not be aware of, that public-private strategies has delivered to the port include things far-reaching beyond lobbying. I can go all the way back to the beginnings of our contract when we got involved with Title 11 mortgages. And people might ask, well, why in the world were you involved with Title 11 mortgages? Well, that's what AmFILS eats, sleeps, and breathes. And without Title 11 mortgages federally, you would not see any of that construction, or much less, I would submit. And we continue to, and at particular times, get very involved in the legislative processes to protect those mortgage monies for our tenant. And we offer that as a landlord service through the port offers that through our firm. We also do things that in the past that dealt with environmental litigation. If you'll recall, the ESCO ship breaking site. In addition to that, the Baldwin waste oil site that most have forgotten. Our firm managed that project to the point of releasing the Port of Brownsville of about a $6.5 million liability that they were facing at that particular time. And the other one was the closure of the ballast pit number 1, that we were instrumental in working that project. In addition to that, one that goes back some time is the landfill, and I take a lot of pride in. We headed that up, managed it, did most of all of the work in that effort, and the value runs upward of $20+ million to this port in what we did to convert that landfill and also make it permanent for the citizens of the city of Brownsville. In addition to that, getting back to the more traditional thing that we've been involved in is, of course, of infrastructure, and we have done many projects which are basically unable to quantify. Well, one being I-69 and the designation of I-69, and the Farm to Market 511 being designated as I-69, which is the only freight connector designation to a deep water port on the entire 8-state corridor. And we have that potential and are proceeding forward with that, and continue to work with Nino and TxDOT to develop and fund that 511. As well as that, we've been involved, as you know, in probably about $16 million of actual money that has come to the port over the period of our contracts in infrastructure projects. In addition to that, we've got some that are out there pending. One being the GSA facility for $10 million, that if in fact those projects proceed. But specifically in the past, of those results that we have delivered. In addition to that, the railroad relocation, of course, is infrastructure, and we've been instrumentally involved in securing over $15 million directly of the $56 million that's gone into. And I think everyone needs to remember and understand that of the 8 authorized railroad relocations in the United States of America, this one here is the only one that has been funded and completed. Only one that's been funded and the only one that's been completed. It's not just the only one that's been completed. It's the only one that's gotten any funding at all. So I think that is a testament to the things that we deliver. In addition to that, and the last 2 that I'll bring up of several others that we've had that I hold a lot of pride in delivering and being involved with, is the overweight quarter permitting. That is a very unusual process. In fact, we're the only one in the state of Texas that has this. And if I'm right in trying to value what that overweight permit is worth to this port and what the extensions are, Mr. Bestietto, in his testimony to the Texas Senate, quote, "In 1997, the year that the DPS started strictly enforcing truck weight statutes, steel tonnage at the Port of Brownsville fell to 382,000 metric tons. In 1998, the year that the overweight permits were first issued, steel tonnage more than doubled to 893,000 metric tons. By 2001, steel tonnage had more than doubled again to 1,701,000 metric tons, and tripled by 2002 to 5.2 million metric tons. Due in large to the overweight corridor, employment at the port has increased from 4,659 persons in 1997 to 7,716 persons in 2002. So whatever number, there's been 200,000 permits, there's been 3,000 jobs added, so we believe that our involvement in the overweight corridor has delivered tremendous value to the port. Now, having said all of that, and that's history, usually people will say, well, what have you done for us lately? We fortunately had the trust of Mr. List called us when in January the port was at a stalemate and a roadblock with the Corps of Engineers on the shoaling issue. And this brings into play the first thing I opened up with as to other members of this firm. We have a member of our firm that is 20-plus year retired colonel from Army. He was 6 years on the Hill as a liaison, which in effect is the Army's lobbyist. He happened to know very high up in the Corps of Engineers certain people and have some very good relationships. We engaged him to make those contacts in late January, and along with our working with Chairman Don Young and other members on the Hill and Congressman Ortiz, things broke loose. and we've pulled off something, and when I say we, it's everyone in this staff, our firm, and others have pulled off something that no one's ever done with the Corps of Engineers in the United States in less than, 60 days, having a dredge involved in a situation that's not even called an emergency. So the value, you can attach a value of the cost of $1.5 million that the Corps is redirected on that, or you can attach the value of, if you look at the communication from Mr. List to the Corps of Engineers, you've got revenues of over $800,000 that would have been lost from operating port call. Revenues of $30,000, stevedoring $1 million and up, and possibly 800 jobs would have been lost if we hadn't been successful in getting that solution, and we are continuing to even improve that solution. So that alone, that one job alone, more than supports the fees that this port pays for their federal consulting, and of course, as you heard earlier, our firm is involved state as well and continues to be involved in the TxDOT and other areas. So I just wanted to present that to the board and answer any questions if anyone had any.
I would just like to add that in our, we just got back last night. Every office that we attended, both Mr. Lemunion and Mr. DeLay were very well regarded, and that I think that's testimony to the actual presence of them in the offices where we need to continue to get results. And as we go into our deepening and widening, that's our future. And so I just wanted to add that to it.
Well, I would like to say that, and in fact, I wanted to point back up just on the operational of what you reported earlier as far as the visits with those folks, and you made the statement these issues are on the radar screen. I think we heard more than that. In fact, we have specific commitments on the widening and deepening that it will be done. It will be in the Word of Bill. And secondly, we've got commitments, not just on a radar screen, from chairmen of 3 different committees that they will support contacting the Corps of Engineers and try to get this dredge to stay here longer. And I think that also goes to show, I think there's been some concerns about recent, what I will call the delay angle, and recent developments or circumstances with my brother. And I would hope that the last 2 days and the relationships and the things that were expressed would help address that concern, a valid concern. But as they know from those that hired me in the beginning in this port, Tom DeLay has never, ever been involved with my firm, nor have I been involved in his politics in the years that I represented the Port of Brownsville, and even have changed my name of the firm to Public-Private Strategies from the DeLay Group to try to avoid that possibility or that innuendo, notwithstanding what media would like it to be. And so I think that the meetings that were experienced today and the results that will come out of those meetings, more importantly, should help to address that concern. But whatever the decision may be, I believe we have delivered on our contract. We have delivered much more value and challenge any other firm to come anywhere close. But personally, it's been an endeavor of joy and pleasure to be a part of making a difference in the lives of the Rio Grande Valley in this region. And I appreciate your trust in that regard.
Dan, is this something we can discuss in executive session, or does it have to be an open session?
Only legal aspects of the contract you can discuss in executive session. I'm not sure, again, what you have in mind, but Mr. DeLay is not an employee.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend that we give a 1-year contract to the PPS consult plus for the regular retainer plus $3,000 for expenses with that cap.
How much is it, Roy?
His regular retainer plus $3,000 for expenses.
15,000 plus expenses.
Yeah, 3,000 cap.
With a cap of 3,000.
Yeah.
Above the 15.
Right.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I'm opposed. Item number 10, consider and act on consulting contracts and work contracts, A.J. Vassal Associates, Inc., February 1st, 2006, for $1,500.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. Item 11, excuse me, just one second. In our excitement to approve of a project management schedule, I forgot to actually ask for Mr. List's recommendation. We passed item 7, but I forgot to ask for your recommendation as to who we are appointing as project manager, which is the second half of that same item.
Yes, sir.
We have a recommendation?
We have considered Nino Gutierrez for this service.
All right. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Move.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Nino, do you want to do this?
Have you talked to Nino?
Have you talked to Nino?
About to talk to Nino. We talked to Nino.
I like that response. See what a success that was, and so I'll certainly vote in favor of the motion and the recommendations. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? There are none. Okay, now we get to item 11. Where's Hector? Report on the seawater desalination project and consideration to participate with the Brownsville Public Utilities Board in the pilot phase project, possible action.
Mr. Zabaleta, members of the board, Mr. List, almost good afternoon. As you're aware...
We're just on the first page.
And we've only done 10 items.
As you're aware, the Brownsville Public Utilities Board has been pursuing the feasibility and potential construction of a seawater desalination plant here in the Brownsville area. Last year, a feasibility study was completed, and basically the results gave prospective benefits for development of this seawater desalination plant, especially if regional consideration was given to the project. Now we're at phase 2, which involves the construction of a pilot test plant. If you may recall from the previous feasibility study, our participation basically included some land for siting such facility, which would be just east of the fishing harbor. The Thursday before last, Mr. Bruce, Mr. Campirano, and I toured the port looking for accessible sites for this pilot plant study, and we sort of have keyed in a site at the fishing harbor, which is right at the end of Fisherman's Place Road, which is this area right here. For that for this plant, we're anticipating anywhere around 2 acres of property. Relatively small. The idea will be a 12-month trial period where water will be pumped from the canal. It will be processed and then discharged back into the canal. The reason why it's being discharged back into the canal is because before you can tap it into any system, the permitting process will be a lot longer than what this project entails. What I'm bringing for your consideration is, if you look at leasing this site, which is waterfront property at $3,600 an acre, plus water, sewer, and fees, we're looking at anywhere from $10,500 to $11,000 a year. And what I'm bringing for your consideration is you want to do that as part of an in-kind contribution. And if I may, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Campirano and Mr. Brusiak. They'll give you a little wider perspective of the grant that they're applying for with the Texas Water Development Board, which includes an in-kind contribution rather than our last one, rather than the previous grant that was a sole application.
Mr.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I think Hector did a good job on explaining basically what the project is. Just for a little bit of history, we were shortlisted by the state last year as one of 3 potential sites for an ocean desalting facility. The state came back this year and has $2.5 million of grant money to do pilot studies at either 1, 2, or 3 of the sites. And then the intent of the state is not to divide that money equally, but to look at the proposals submitted by each entity and then to determine how much grant money we would receive towards that. We have to get in the application for the grant by next Friday. In fact, we're going to hand deliver it. Our board last month selected NRS Consulting Engineers to assist us with the pilot. They did the Southmost Regional Water Authority project for us. And we're hopeful, we're putting together a proposal right now to hopefully try to get as much of that grant money as we can. The project would be a 1-year pilot study. I do think the port is our partner in this project, would receive a lot of notoriety and visits on the project when it is in place. We plan to do it up real nice out there where we will have a lot of visitors and a lot of people wanting to observe our project. We are putting together, as Hector said, a proposal for in-kind services. PUB would provide the power for the facility for the year. We would provide laboratory services for the testing. We will provide the operators for the project while it's out here. And we also probably put some cash in as well. We haven't determined exactly how much that'll be. But we would like to think that our project is the best project. It's the only project that the state's identified with a true need. We have to have the project in by the fall, a preliminary draft to the state. And then by next summer, the final report in, once the 12 months is completed with that. Then the state would decide as far as going forward of picking a site for possibly state participation in the actual construction of the project. And so it is a pretty aggressive schedule, probably be looking at 09 or 010 probably to have the plan in place. Our vision is to have this a regional project, not just for Brownsville, but possibly for all of the county or even farther, even including Mexico, because they do have water needs as well, and include them in the process. Our engineers here, Mike Myers with NRS, if the commission had any questions on that, but want to thank the port. The state will act in April on the grant funding, so we will be back here in April to let the port know about our success with receiving funding. And we're excited about the project. Staff at the port has worked with us very well here to expedite this, Hector and Donna, and appreciate that, and Bernard. So we're excited. And we're here to answer any questions.
What are the other 2 sites that are?
I'm sorry, Corpus and Freeport.
John, first of all, this is exactly what we're looking for, which is being a willing partner and coming to the table with you. Obviously, Brownsville residents, as taxpayers to our district, would be the primary customers of this water. Is that correct?
That's correct.
How about the folks in Los Fresnos who also pay taxes to this district? Would they also receive this water?
Ultimately, I think once the pilot will just be, there won't be any water really coming off that. In fact, we did look at possibly the port maybe taking some of the water from that and putting it in. But surely the major project would include all of Cameron County.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yes.
This pilot would just see that it works. It's really not going to produce water.
Right.
Well, we will actually produce water out of it.
Not a scale.
Not a scale. One of the things we're talking about is possibly tapping into the port water system so they could use it, having an aquarium out there to show that the water coming out could sustain aquatic life and things like that. We want to do a showcase project here, and I think we can really bring a lot of attention to the Port of Brownsville with this project.
If there's good success with that, you say 2009, from that point, would that become permanent? Would it be expanded right there at that site, or would we be looking at other areas, or will that work for long term?
It would work for long term. We're going to analyze the site, analyze the intake structures we would need, but our plan is to have this project at the port.
Beyond the pilot phase?
Yes.
Actually construct an operational plant at the same site?
If possible, yes.
But your intake would be out of the ship channel.
Yes. That's what our pilot's going to show right now.
And how about your discharge of brine?
Well, for the testing purposes, that would probably be hauled away or diluted and put back into it. For the major plant, we would look at offshore disposal or deep well injection. We're going to analyze both of those in the pilot stage.
And the only thing you're asking us for is the land for free?
Well, I think for the year, what we want to do is structure our application with in-kind contributions, and this could be a good support by the port to show that for a year, to use that site. We're going to value that property and value the utilities out there and make that as attractive in our in-kind contribution as possible.
But as far as I guess you'd furnish your own electricity.
Correct.
As far as your water and sewer and...
If we could get that from the port, I think Hector, there is water and sewer right there. Be very, very small amount of treated water needed.
What about that portion of the guard service out there at the fishing harbor?
Yeah, we'd like to contribute that as well as in kind.
That's one of the problems is that, shrimpers are going broke and we got fewer and fewer people paying their guard service, so.
The site that you talked about, isn't that outside the...
No, it's inside.
Oh, it's inside. Oh, it's inside. Okay.
It's within the confines of the fishing harbor, right at the end of Fisherman's Place Road.
Okay.
I don't see any problem with it. I said let's go for it. I so moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion to participate with the Brownsville Public Utilities Board in the pilot phase project in the parameters that have been discussed here today by Mr. Brusiak as well as Mr. Lopez. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those
I just want to say that if you all ever need anybody from you're doing a presentation, you just want to show the unity that we have on this project, I want to tell you that from my perspective, I think the port needs to do anything we can to help, because one thing we're going to need in this area, especially with our growth, is water. That's right. And I think that's why we are one of the sites selected. So.
Well, we're excited. We think it'll ultimately land here and as a final project.
Very good. Right. Okay. Do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Let me just add that probably on our next meeting, I will probably bring into you a letter of resolution. Exactly. And this is just a formality for the resolution, which I believe we don't have.
And that will be in time for your purposes, John?
We're going to have to deliver the application next Friday. We're going to hand deliver it.
A week from today.
But we can submit that after. It won't hold up or delay that because they're going to have 30 days to review it. We'll just submit that. That would be helpful.
Would it be better to submit it at the same time?
It would.
All right. Can we expand the motion to include the adoption of the resolution? Let's get it done, Hector. Yeah. Let's get it done in time for him to hand deliver it at the same time.
Okay.
Okay.
And anything else you need, let us know, please.
It's been very helpful, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. Item number 12, consider and act on an agreement for professional services with HDR Engineering, Inc., Shiner Mosley and Associates, Inc., for providing engineering services in connection with the Port Deepening Feasibility Study Project.
During our last meeting, your board authorized us to proceed contract negotiations with Shiner Mosley, now HDR Engineering / Shiner Mosley, for this particular project. Your agenda packet includes some information and documentation for this item. Basically, HDR Engineering is proposing a multi-project agreement on a time and material basis, which is to include several tasks to be developed and approved by the board as the project develops. Since the submittal for your package, I've been in communication and negotiations with Shiner Mosley, and there's some minor adjustments that have been done, but overall, basically your packet is as complete as it is. Let me do say, and if I may refer first to the anticipated project overview, and it has basically 3 phases: Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 2B, and Phase 3. Phase 1, which is the task order number 1, which is included in your packets, is for assisting the port in reviewing the project management plan, the cost share agreement, meeting with us, of course, regarding what their services may be for this project, negotiating with the Corps of Engineers. Once we have prepared what our in-kind contribution may be, we need to take it to the Corps of Engineers for their approval, and first for their acceptance and subsequent approval, of course, and then finalizing those documents and to begin the work. Per conversations with the Corps of Engineers, they would really like to have a proposal from us, or have to have a proposal from us by the end of this month, March 31st. And so there is a very short fuse that we'd like to consider for that. May I also refer to the other table that you should have there regarding the estimated task hours and dollars involved for this task 1. We're basically looking at approximately anywhere between $50,000 to $60,000. The estimated number is $55,593. However, that will be that's the contract will be based on a time and material basis. In regards to some other changes that I'm proposing, includes that on the multiple project agreement we include to include Shiner Mosley as not just HDR, since our initial requests on the RFP were for Shiner Mosley. Also, on the second page, for Mr. Zavaleta to be the signator of any of the agreement. And under their general terms and conditions for professional services, which I'm awaiting a review from Daniel and his concurrence, I'm also requesting that under Article 5, controlling law, that we add Cameron County as venue rather than as where services, professional services will be rendered.
Thank you.
And also let me say that there's a new revised schedule of rates that I've been able to negotiate since then. It's a little bit lower than what is in this package, although most of the principles involved in the project remain at the same rate, but eventually in the future, regular technical services for engineering and drafting and that type of work, it's at a lower rate than what is currently shown. My request today is for authorization of this multitask agreement and task order number 1 only, provided I have concurrence and any other comments that I may have from Mr. Renfro's office.
Mr. Liz? Anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Okay.
So moved.
With the changes.
Of course. I've got some questions. What are we asking for as far as deepening and widening?
Well, currently our original PMP has 45, 50, and 55-foot depths with 100-foot widening as alternatives. Personally, I think that the 55, it's not going to show a favorable cost-benefit ratio. And I'd like to see also to incorporate into the PMP, perhaps doing 45 feet all the way to Dock 5 or Old Dock 5 and Cargo Dock 15 as another alternative. My understanding through communications that I have with Shiner Mosley is that screening out alternatives is not where the big money comes from. The big money comes from once you decide in 2 alternatives, and then you go forward with all the detailed engineering and all the environmental studies and public involvement and all the other issues that you've got to relate to that project. And so that's as its answer. It's up for us, and that will be part of what Chandra Mosley will be doing on this phase. They will be coming back to us and saying, look, guys, we've had a chance to review the PMP. We feel that we should narrow it down, or we should modify the current PMP to show these alternatives, and this is what we should bring forward to the Corps of Engineers.
To add to that, we've had some informal discussions internally trying to look at the big picture and where we're going, and is the upper end of the scale too ambitious for our current business, for our core business? Do we want to look at it in a more practical sense? We feel that by reaching something like Hector just mentioned, 45 foot all the way through would increase the capabilities of the steel importers to have the bigger package, the bigger economies of scale, and so immediately would give us a greater return. And we think, but again, that's work in progress, that by presenting a more realistic approach to the Corps and so on, that I believe that we'll have a more favorable approval from them if it makes good marketing, business, and impact sense. So
you're looking at 100-foot widening.
The widening, you said 100
feet wider.
Okay. 100 feet. Correct. And that's more taking into account, the drilling rigs and how they've informed us that sometimes they missed opportunities because some of the bigger ones are wide down below and cannot access the channel. So there's a lot of considerations, but I think what we're saying is our general philosophy is to approach it with something that is realistic, that is doable, and not something that's just in the dream stage, or maybe a second or third phase on down years, or if we should get a private partner that would help us invest, then we can add to our efforts as we go. So I think that's where we're focusing in.
I think that's very good, because I think in some of our discussions with the Corps, I think once you get to 50 feet, anything beyond that, we're responsible for it 100%.
They're looking at changing that.
Okay, yeah.
It used to at 50.
Yeah, it was a cutoff there, and then we'd have...
Again, you're on your own.
Yeah.
The ports are going deeper now,
Right.
so they're looking at trying to
We
change
heard
the
60 feet up there in Washington. 60 feet.
Let me do say that one of my concerns is, as part of the development, is that if you look at the feasibility preliminary study, the 905B, it basically is the federal interest was based on two aspects. One was bringing ores and concentrates from South America and Mexico, and the other one were the new oil fields to be developed here close by that will come to landfills. And I don't like to put all my duckies on those two specific
this gives us more flexibility.
Commodities.
Yeah.
I'd like to, and so it's going to depend a lot on us to provide information of where we want to see. I feel that a short strategic plan is very important to make this a success, and I'd like to, in concurrence with what has been going on previous to this agenda item, I like what I hear and where we're heading, but we need to have all that information given to the Corps of Engineers. When this PMP was prepared, I personally felt that there was a little lack of information from us to them saying, here, guys, this is where we think we're heading. And I'd like to say that hopefully it seems that we're on good track.
Well, our master planning efforts and our impact studies results will certainly add information to that guidance so we can make the best decision.
Can I just add just one thing? When we originally did this, just to give you a little background, in order for us to continue with the government, with the recon study that the government paid for 100%, we could not show them what our potential business is going to be.
Right.
We had to base that entire thing off what we had right now and what the businesses that we had right now, the revenues that they were losing because of lack of draft. So, I mean, that original study had to be based on what we had, not what, if we had, they would come. So that's why it was done.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner De Los Santos to...
we're only committing to 60,000 right now.
Correct. That will be for phase one. Once this phase is completed, then we will prepare a task order number 2 that will be brought to you.
Calling it task 1 because Tenenbaum and task 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6.
Well, okay, so we have a motion to to accept this recommendation, and that motion does include and direct the inclusion of the changes that you suggested, Mr. Lopez. And do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. Hector, keep up the good work on this.
Thank you, sir.
Hector, so the widening that we're proposing, that should be as much as we would ever need. Would that be a fair statement, or?
Well, within my lifetime, yes, sir.
Okay. Good answer. Good answer. Good enough for me.
All right, item number 13. Consider and take action to authorize the staff to advertise for bids for limestone.
Joe Garza was called away, so
Okay.
We are asking. Oh, is he back?
Oh, Joe.
Oh, he'll let me do this. We are asking the board for authorization to request proposals for 17,000 tons of limestone. This is generally the amount we use in a year that we anticipate building a lot of patios. The estimate on this is between $210,000 and $213,700 on an annual basis. We do have approximately $300,000 left in bond monies to build at least one more patio. Again, I think we're going to be putting that in the area near Dock 10. We're putting in the new rail as soon as that rail is relocated. A lot of this limestone is going to be headed for that patio. And so we're asking for the authorization to take bids.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Item number 14, consider and act on adding the Manager of Governmental Affairs to the organizational chart and approving the job description. Joe?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, one note, while Mr. List was away, we had decided that that job, even though it says manager, should be probably a director's position. And so therefore we are proposing that it be the Director of Governmental Affairs. And in your packet you have the job description proposed, and it is ready for your approval.
Just something to consider, gentlemen. We've just realized a savings of $48,000 by giving Ms. Silva 30 days notice. If we were to elect not to fill this position this year, we could realize, what's the pay scale? Is it up to $75,000?
Is what?
Is that correct? Let's just. I'm just going to say $75,000. If we were to add those two amounts together, we'd be talking about a little bit over $112,000. I would love to have this position. As I mentioned last week or the last meeting when this item was brought up, this was actually something that I supported, and I do support it. I wonder, though, whether it would be wise to do this position as opposed to, we may get to a point where we need to hire an additional lobbyist or a replacement lobbyist in Washington, and I wonder whether we can use that $112,000 towards additional lobbyists or replacement lobbyists in Washington.
I think for our day-to-day, we could probably continue as we are, and I know that puts a load on Deputy Emard and a lot of day-to-day, and myself, I'm involved. But I think we would be okay with that. But I would like to keep it on the radar screen for the upcoming fiscal year, perhaps.
Couldn't we just put it in there anyway, Peter, and just not hire the position and look at somebody else also?
Yes, that can be done.
And then that's how we discussed it last time.
Okay.
Where when we
fill the position. And consider the things that we're thinking about.
I think there are 11 positions on the chart that have not been filled, and that doesn't mean because they're on there they will be filled.
Sure. It gives us
gives you the option,
ability to do it if we so desire or find an excellent person to fit the bill.
So, Roy,
I would recommend that in a motion.
I'll make a second.
And we put it in, but
not fill it at this time.
Not going to hire them.
Not at this time. Just wait.
I just and just for the as discussion purposes, we can have as many lobbyists in Washington as we can afford. But if we don't have a good communication with them back and forth, it's not going to matter how many lobbyists we have there. And I'm not saying we don't have a good communication today. I'm just saying I think the responsibilities are we're not.
Plus, as we grow the protocol and all that we discussed last time, it's an important function, but I think we can get through one more.
As long as approving this job description and the organizational chart doesn't require us to then go out and...
Well, as I understood the motion, I have it that Commissioner Del Santos moved to approve the job description, but to leave the position unfilled pending further action of the board.
Well, not further action of the board. The position, let's just put it in there. And then the board is probably going to be looking at other options to doing something with that money for a year or 2 years. And then we'll come back and fill the position when needed.
Same thing what he said just now.
I guess what I'm saying is could the staff advertise and hire somebody tomorrow?
No, they're
not going
to the board.
Well, that's the thing. It sort of leaves it out there. Well, I'll tell you what.
Motion, you can put it that they have to come back to the board to hire.
Let's put that in. That way they come back to us anyway.
That'll work.
If we're not going to do anything about it, why approve it now anyway?
That's my point. That's my point.
But the problem is if we don't approve it today, then if 3 months down the road, Mr. List decides that he does need somebody to be in this role, he doesn't have the option to hire somebody. What we're doing is we're giving opening.
But even if he doesn't have the option to hire unless...
You want to move to table this item?
Yes, I'd like to table it.
I'll second the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, there are none.
Wait a minute, we had a motion first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can we add this during the year at any time?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, do you want to vote on your motion, Commissioner?
Might as well.
Okay. Did someone second Commissioner Del Santos' motion?
I believe I did.
Okay. So,
your motion.
In your opinion, Mr. Renfro, that could then result in an immediate posting of the job?
No, because it's going to come back to the board.
Well, it depends on your motion. Does your motion include a requirement?
Make it legally right that they got to come to us first. Take care of it.
Then they could not post it.
Okay, thank you.
If that is your motion.
That's it.
And that's my second. And I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. Item number 15. Consider and take action on an order and notice of a Navigation and Canal Commissioners election to be held May 13, 2006 for the purpose of electing 2 Navigation and Canal Commissioners. Debbie?
This is the official act that you as a board need to take so that we can hold our election on May 13th. This notice and order needs to be adopted before March 13th, so this is our last meeting to do it. I did want to go through one wrinkle that I've run across. BISD is also holding an election on the same day. It's a bond election. However, they have not ordered early voting here at the port for their election, nor are they intending to. I've talked to them, and due to some of the things that they have to go through to get an election ordered.
Well, let's be clear. They have not ordered early voting for BISD trustees.
For BISD trustees in their election. Neither has UTB. They went together on this. I have talked to the staff at our election administrator's office. We can order it for the BND election to be held here. They can program their laptops that their judges will have so that if someone votes here in our election early, they can go to another site and vote early in the other elections. They would not be limiting themselves. So I
was hoping you'd say that, Debbie, because I got your email yesterday.
I had not had it clarified for me yet, but I did get them this morning.
It sounded to me like from your email yesterday that another governmental entity could prevent people at the port from voting early here for port commissioners.
This is kind of technology. It used to be when we did not have the laptops at early voting, that once they had voted at one place early, if all of the voting was not there, they could not then go to another place and vote. because of the fact that we now have the technology to mark a voter that they've only voted in this race, they could then go to another location and vote. So yes, they did tell me that they could set that up for us.
And is the action that you're asking us to take today and the resolution that you'll be presenting, is it directing and authorizing early voting for BND commissioners here at the port?
That's correct.
Okay.
There are a number of places that the other entities have authorized.
Right.
Those are included in our order as well as here.
Also moved.
Second.
I'll gladly vote for it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. Item 16. Consider and take action on the resolution in the matter of the holding of a general election for the purpose of electing 2 Navigation and Canal Commissioners of the Brownsville Navigation District of Cameron County, Texas, in regard to the May 13, 2006 election.
This is a companion piece of action that you need to take. It has more detailed, specifically drawing out of our precincts. It has the appointing of election judges. The one that I sent you earlier did not have the new list. I do now have the new list of judges. It tells us the manner of voting. It's just a real specific piece of how we're going to hold our election, and that is ready for your action.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? There are none. Item 17, consider and take action on a contract for election services with the Cameron County Elections Administrator for the May 13th, 2006 election.
And I'd ask you to table that. It's not ready.
Motion.
We didn't know where we're going on
And that
early
would not
voting.
jeopardize the May 13th election?
No, it won't.
Okay.
It won't.
We have a motion to table and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? There are none. Item 18, consider and take action to select independent audit.
One more thing.
Sure.
On the list that you sent us, the bottom stopped off of the polling places. So can me and Julius get a complete?
I will send you a complete one, certainly.
Okay. Item 18, consider and take action to select independent auditor for the fiscal years ending March 1, 2006, 2007, and 2008. Requests for proposals were received on February 14, 2006. Gentlemen, I have a conflict on this item. One of the 3 presenters is my accountant, and under our code of ethics, I will recuse myself. I'm actually going to turn the meeting over to Vice Chairman Collins. I'll leave the room. I don't want to be a part of the discussion. I ask that staff not give me any materials relating to this item, and so let me just leave the room. You can call me back in, and if you don't, I'll have lunch.
Debbie, you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I'll let Chairman.
But wait a minute, one of the people is my accountant also.
You want to leave the room, Joe?
Yeah, if Peter's going to leave the room, I will too.
I think y'all needed a break.
I don't think there's sandwiches outside.
Have a cookie.
What excuse do I have?
I don't have that kind of money, so I don't have any problem.
I mean,
Well, maybe I'll have a conflict.
Go ahead.
No, no.
Did you even think about it? Okay. We did receive 3 proposals, and they did make presentations to you at the last meeting. The staff has looked at the proposals, and our recommendation is that we select Long and Chilton as our auditor for the next 3 years.
So moved.
Move. Seconded?
easy. You second it.
I second it. All right, seconded. Any discussion on this? You have any conflict?
It differs how technical. I don't use them as my accountant. My wife is a CPA, so I don't have a conflict. But I know people that do. So I'll just go ahead and. But I won't
All in
vote.
favor of the motion, signify by
Yes.
saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, 3. All opposed, same sign. Bring the guys in.
Item 19, consider and take action on extending contract for insurance consulting services with RWL Group through October 1 of 2006. Debbie?
Yes, sir. Their original contract expired in October 1 of 2005, but as we were in the RFP process, they continued to work with me on a more or less a month-to-month basis, but they actually haven't been paid since October, and they were offered to continue through October of 2006 on the same terms that we had before.
So
I would recommend this.
Second motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, there are none. Item 20, consider and take action to award bids for property and liability insurance program received on February 2nd, 2006.
Okay, Carol Miller was here at the last meeting, and I know that she had a long recommendation. I tried to put this into a table so we can understand a little bit further what we're recommending for you to do. The issue with the TML proposal is that some parts of it would have been less, some parts would have been more. If we had taken any part of the existing policy with TML, everything would have had to have changed and would have resulted in an increase. So their recommendation that was that we reject the majority of the bids that we received, with a few exceptions. They recommend on the public officials and liability to increase our current limits from $1 million to $2 million with a $4 million aggregate. That's an additional premium of $1,045 per year, and all of these premiums will be prorated till October 1st, so it's about a half a year. And they proposed that we accept the TML proposal for law enforcement liability. It's a coverage we don't currently have. There would be a $2 million per claim, $4 million aggregate with a $25,000 deductible. The annual premium is $2,705. They've proposed that we accept the fiduciary liability with TML. We currently carry it outside of TML. We would get about approximately a 50% reduction in the rate if we moved it to TML. And the premium would be $1,746 annually. They've also proposed that we accept the employee dishonesty and crime. This is a policy that we haven't currently got in place, with the $500,000 limit, a $150,000 limit for computer fraud, and a $2,500 deductible. The premium would be $782 annually. And they have proposed that we take additional business income and loss insurance specific to the crane. There were two limits proposed. They're recommending that we take the $350,000 limit with a $5,000 deductible, and the annual premium will be $1,393. And those are the recommendations, and I would concur with those.
And do you agree with them, Debbie?
Yes, sir, I do.
So moved.
I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. Item number 21. Consider...
On number 21 and 22, I would ask that you go ahead and there's no action to be taken at this time. Cielo has paid in full.
Yes.
And they have provided a proposal that I think Mr. List needs time to look at.
But everything? They paid $88,000 some dollars. Yes, sir.
Wait, we have a motion to table items 21 and 22.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
What are they planning on still doing something down here?
We had a conversation with them before the holidays and told them that we'd like to sit and work with them. The principal said he would travel this way. We called back 2 times to see when we could get together. It's been entangled and what have you, wasn't able to do it. And then we moved forward because we hadn't heard, and last moment he came through. And so we do want to discuss it because I think they do intend to go forward. It's good for us. It's energy related for the future. There's some environmental challenges that they've been through, major hoops, so we're at that juncture right now. But this shows that they do have an interest to go forward.
What property did they actually lease? I thought they just put a monitor in.
They had leased property on the south side. They had asked permission to get out of that lease, which the board had approved. However, the equipment is still
I
there.
didn't know that they actually leased the property. I thought
They had leases.
Testing going.
And on the north side, they had a lease that they still have. And I believe, if I can just kind of go through what he's told us, I believe he wants to come back and talk to the board about getting a first refusal to cut down on the amount that he's having to pay while he's going through some major hurdles that he's run into. But he would like to. He's made full payment on what he owed, and he would like to come in and talk to Mr. List about where he goes from here.
Who is the principal? Who's
Walter
Hornaday.
With these energy prices still going up, I mean, that wind
Absolutely,
power
yeah.
looks better and better all the time.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
He's
so we
running
have-
into some wetlands issues, and I mean, we all know what we go through there.
We have a motion and a second to table items 21 and 22. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? There are none. Item 23, consider and take action to amend the district's operating budget for fiscal year 2007 to provide for cost of living raises and merit increases.
Mr. List and I have worked on revising our proposal. I think Mr. List has some information that we worked on this morning.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to take it.
Let's hand it over. We went back and looked at the cost of living factor that was included, and again, because when it was initially put together, you know, it was getting ready for the budget, so we went back and checked. In January, it was 4.7 again, and I think it reflects a lot of items such as fuel increases and so on, and so that is a fact. What we did do is we scaled it a little bit to favor the from the middle level of income employees, middle level income on down, to not impact those and stimulate morale. And then from the middle on up, it goes to 3.7 is the max that they can get. I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Okay.
No. But every employee would be getting a cost of living increase.
Yes, it's just prorated, just slightly different. It doesn't make a major change.
We drew the line at about $25,000 as an annual. Under that, they would be at the 4.7, and over that, and that's approximately midway through our employee base.
Okay, now, Mr. Liss, as far as the merit rate,
on the merit side of it, we took 0.5% off of everybody's, and that reduced it down to the merit maximum 3%, I believe it is.
I think 4. There were some 4.5s. So 4 is the maximum.
Okay.
2.5. The majority are 2.5 and 3%.
Right. And those are for recognition of people going above and beyond their regular duties.
Yeah, but I want to be clear about that. Those merit increases were based on the performance of the employee in the opinion of their department supervisor for the period before the current budget year began.
That's correct.
That is correct. As you end up the year, you do an evaluation, but then it reflects in your next fiscal year.
So if that same employee that is denied a merit increase for the current budget year is able to reform him or herself in the matters that are covered in the evaluation, then they could earn a merit increase for the next fiscal year.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
The lower paid employees get a bigger percent raise
on the cost of living
than the higher paid employees.
That on the cost of living, that is correct.
Why was the merit increase reduced to begin with?
Go ahead.
I wasn't.
We just got through getting Randy to lay a merit increase.
Yeah.
I'm opposed to giving our employees anything less than a merit increase, so I'm not going to vote for any reduction.
And we weren't sure what the issue was when it was tabled last week or last meeting. So we've done some preliminary to let you see what
we can go
it
back
is.
to the original.
Absolutely.
Original figure. Yeah.
I make a motion to approve it as presented.
To understand, because we didn't have the scale down part of it last session, and so you.
In their backup packet, there was a presentation with the scale down.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. I think the chairman said that the merit increase stays as was presented last session.
Right. He's the one that made the motion.
And okay, I'm sorry. But the cost of living will be scaled down.
His motion was to approve it as presented.
As presented.
With both scales.
He presented it as 4.7.
Okay.
And then the merit raises were scaled down.
Now I understand.
I would have done it just the opposite, cut down to 4.7 and left the merit the same. But anyway, it is a reduction.
It's an option.
Because I felt 4.7 plus a merit raise on top of that was too much at one time. But as long as it comes down a little bit on either side.
But as presented, it was 4.7 and then 3.
Not scaled. It was across the board as presented.
At this meeting?
Yeah, I believe that's what Mr. Liz just presented.
Well, why don't you let the person making the motion make that?
Could you clarify that, please?
Okay. On the cost of living, the lower paid employees are being paid more
As revised.
than the higher paid. Okay.
And that's just because
And then the merit raises, it was cut down some. So
We revised it
that's
to
what
come
I'm-
back to you.
That's why I'm making my motion.
Wait, now I'm confused. The cost of living, just to get this straight, is 4.7 across the board.
Initially presented.
No.
No, right now.
Right now, it's scaled down.
About midway through, it's scaled down.
It's in two scales, the lower paid and the higher paid.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Well, like I said, gentlemen, I mean, I think it's a little hypocritical on our part to be giving a lobbyist who's not produced, and certainly giving him a year contract.
But I still have a question.
With a merit. Well, I'm not
yeah.
finished yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And here we are, rubbing heads off nickels for employees that have worked very hard for us and continue to work very hard for us. So I'm going to vote against the motion.
Well, on the merit raises, you said to leave them as they were, no, Joe? Or you're going to...
No, it'd be the lesser amount.
Are you withdrawing your second?
No.
Any discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? I'm opposed. And I'm opposed because I would have preferred a higher merit rate. Item number 24, consider an act on the following leases. JTM Second Limited. Number 1. B?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is a new lease. This company is the one that purchased the Donnie Chair Building, and they were the high bidder of $770,000 plus a 10% auction fees. And this new lease to be effective March the 5th for 5 years with 5 renewal options of 5 years each. Their rent will be $13,050 a year, and this contract is ready for the board's consideration.
So moved.
We also have a bill of sale. Daniel, did you prepare the bill of sale?
You're also being asked to approve a bill of sale to transfer the building to them. I would also ask that you authorize Mr. List to sign any other incidental documents. Anytime you have a closing, there's just miscellaneous paperwork.
In the same motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? There are none. Allied Mineral Products, Inc.
Yes, sir. This changes their term from, they have, effective September the 1st of this year, they had 1-5 option of a yearly, 5 more yearly options. They changed that to 5 years to make it to 5 of 5 and for another 25 years. And that amendment is ready for the board's consideration.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, to add to that, the type of business that they're doing requires long-term commitment, and that's why they've come back to us, and we discussed it and agreed on that. Okay.
And you're agreeable with the rate, Mr. List?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry, did we have a motion in a second? Mm-hmm. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? There are none. Item 4, Esco Marine, Inc.
Number 3, sir, we
I'm
skipped
sorry,
a
number 3, Rio Plastics, Inc.
Yes, sir. This amendment increases their acreage by 1 acre and increases their rent to $37,872, and this amendment's ready for their board's consideration.
Where are they at?
It's, they are,
Right next to Donnie Chair.
yes.
Yeah.
This is Real Plastics, and they took this little, straight across here, it's 1 acre.
Okay, they're next door.
Yeah, next to this.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? There are none. Item 4, Esco Marine, Inc.
ESCO is also increasing their acreage from 3.12 acres to 6.27 acres, also increases their rent to $12,540 a year, and this amendment's ready for the board's consideration. And they're off of 511 and Yard Road, right here, this area. This was the old Exxon Nobel site. They're here and they're expanding this additional acreage. And this amendment is ready for the board's
Make a
consideration.
motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. Item 5, Bedley Group, Inc.
Badoli is also increasing their acreage from 10.847 acres to 17.01 acres. And they're increasing their rent to $53,015 a year, and this amendment is ready for the board's consideration. And Badoli is one of our shipyards, and they're right here. And they're increasing this, and they're adding this, because they're going to add a scale and an employee parking out here.
They're just moving towards the highway.
Yes, sir. Here additional, and here.
So, Ms. Rosenbaum, you said the total lease amount will now be what?
The total lease amount for Badoli, it's going from $36,916.80 to $53,015.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion. Commissioner Collins seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. Item 6, Foremost Paving, Inc.
Request to table that item.
So moved.
And we have a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. Item 7, Texas Marine Ventures, Inc.
This is a new lease to this company that is taking over a site across from the fishing harbor. Right here, this is a little restaurant that y'all gave me authority to negotiate with. They are taking it over from James A. Evans, and they're going to have a seafood restaurant there and the sale of alcohol, which is the 80-20 is what the board agreed to, and that's in the contract. And that new lease is ready for the board's consideration.
That's the one that's outside the gate.
That's outside the gate, yes, sir.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. Item 8, James A. Evans, release of lease.
Yes, sir. This is the release that'd be subject to you approving in the new lease to Texas Marine Ventures.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. Item 25, consider and take action on assignment, negotiations, easements, subleases, and contracts in general. Number 1, JTM the Second Limited.
Yes, sir. They requested that we put an item of subordination. Mr. Renfro, I don't know if he had a chance to look at that document.
It's not exactly a subordination, it's a collateral assignment of their lease. Obviously, they're borrowing the money to buy the building, and the bank wants to know that if they ever had to take the building back, they'd get the lease too. I haven't had a chance to review it word for word, but it's...
We've done that before, haven't we?
They're not, the bank's not going to lend the money if you don't do it, and so...
Make a motion to approve it upon Dan reviewing it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. Item 3, Brownsville Public Utilities Board, authority to negotiate.
We skipped South Central Coaches, sir.
Item number 2, South Central Coaches, Inc., sublease.
Yes, sir. This is a company here on 511. They're subleasing to Torment Energy Systems. They're a sheet metal fabrication and storage. They're a supplier of Vanfills, and Mr. Renfro's reviewed the consent, and it is ready for the boards.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. Item 3, Brownsville Public Utilities Board, authority to negotiate.
Yes, sir. PUB had 2 contracts with us, 2466 and 3261, that expired February 28th. This was for the slush disposal. It's right over there. The site is right over, it's 150 acres next to the landfill. And they're asking for a new lease at the site for the same purpose. And I'm asking the board to give me authority to negotiate.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. Item 4, Jose Luis Garcia, DBA South Steel, LU.
Yes, sir. This lease is due to expire April the 30th with no renewal options, and they'd like a new contract. They're here on 511, and that's what. That is one action, and then they are turning around and subleasing it, their warehouse, to Textile Recycle World LLC for the purpose of a textile used clothing processing recycling business. And they're wanting to, the agreement is to not only sublease, but these people will have an option to purchase this building. And so I guess we need, if the board approves of it, then someday these people could be buying the building and are going to be in the used clothing business operation. So if you consent to the sublease, that someday, and when I do a new lease with Mr. Garcia, we will add to the purpose clause used clothing because they were in the steel sheet metal business.
Daniel?
I just wanted to make sure that you understood that they are, although the lease would be to Mr. Garcia, who is our current lessee, they were immediately going to sublease this to this new company and for a purpose that's different than his previous use. I just wanted to make sure.
What's the purpose of that arrangement? What's the purpose why is the lessee doing that?
Because they're selling, well...
Why aren't we dealing directly with the sublessee?
Why not? Because the building belongs to the present lessee, and these people want to buy this building, but they're going to be paying in payments, and until such time that they finish paying, then at that time they'll assign it over to the new owner. That's the reason.
Do you see any complications?
Well, we can work through the legal complications as long as you're comfortable it's going to change from a steel handling facility to a used clothing. You need to understand that is their intent, and they're being very upfront about it. They're not trying to hide that, but you need to understand that.
That's a completely closed warehouse, or you're not even going to see anything.
I'm fine with it as long as we got the legal part of it.
Yeah. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, there are none. Ladies and gentlemen, does anybody have anything to bring before us in the matter of a public comment? There being no one, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and
Take care, Julius.
longest meeting.